Apparently it's live, and we are live now. Where do you start with this whole thing about the LWH data? I want to say thank you very much to everyone that listens to this after the stream has ended, that will hopefully be there and listen to it on the replay crew, as it's called. But hi, 36 trillion cells. Hi, everybody else that I've interacted with on the comments prior to this going live as well. It's just blown my mind today thinking about this, these claims about Liverpool Women's Hospital and the extubations. I can't get my head around what they're saying, and it's because of the lack of information that they're really giving, and they're giving a lot of, they're making a lot of, they've drawn these conclusions without giving us all the information that we need to check the meaning of it, really. Hi Topsy Turvy. Hi everybody else that's here. Just on the Coke Zero tonight, I thought it was probably the best thing. Just noticed while people are coming in, got Chris's on Lucy Letby analysis is video to watch tomorrow, focusing on Evans's latest performance in the Panorama, the latest Panorama. I've noticed also Tom Evans has done a video as well. Is it not Tom Evans? Sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Tom. Oh, let me look that up again. Tom. Oh no, so there's Black Squareable has done one. I haven't watched it yet. Who to Believe. Sorry, my mind's all over the shop, but I do want to do this. Tom Evans. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Apollo Tom. He's done one called Panorama, Who to Believe, revisit after the change. I haven't listened to that yet. I've listened to the hi Tom Evans. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. For some reason, I just, because I was thinking about Evans as well, and I just nothing wrong with the name Evans. A lovely name, but it's just but Dewey Evans, not Dewey Evans, isn't our favourite person, is he really? Yeah. So Chris, gonna watch that later, Tom, or tomorrow as well. And Black Squareable's done a video as well. Jane Hutton's complained to the BBC. That's really good. No relation. Absolutely. That's fair enough. I don't think I'm related to him either, or anyone else involved in this. I don't think so. Perhaps, if you go back 30 generations, there's probably a link between us all somehow. But where do we start with this? I was hoping some people might want to come on. I'll put the link in again here to discuss this, really. It's just blown my mind. I've been trying to get my mind around what's missing here in order to, because I know they're trying to cheat this, aren't they? They're trying to make it sound very powerful and very convincing, and as Coffee says, that's damning, isn't it, without having thought about it at all. Hi Melanistic Marble. I'm going to try to keep in touch with all the chat as normal, and hope that people might want to come on to discuss this a bit. So I've watched, and I imagine other people have as well, that kind of the 8-minute video that I've got it here. I thought of one thing we could do is watch it through together, but I don't know if that's necessary. But some people may have watched the Richard Gill video, a statistician's reaction to the 40% revelation, sample size equals 11. There are a few points made there which I wasn't quite sure about. I know it is kind of, it's an initial reaction because Mr. McDonald has received an apology, hasn't he? Right. We don't have the figures. It happened much less often in 2015. I'm not sure where to start. My mind's like flying in all directions. High off license. Okay, I made these 2 videos earlier today, and I'm talking, a lot of things I was talking about are what's the difference between a work shift, and what's the difference between, in practical terms, a work shift and a ventilation shift. So have I got this right? If on that unit, the whole of the unit, LWH, let's just say there were 10 babies on ventilation. There might not be the same ones throughout both ventilation periods in a day, but let's just say there were an average of 10 babies on a 12-hour ventilation shift across a full day. That totals then into 20 ventilation shifts, doesn't it, for that one day? 20. So if you average that out for a week, you'd end up with 140 potential ventilation shifts. I'm just using these numbers. I don't know, and that's one of the things we don't know. What percentage of babies on that unit, how many, and how variable was it that X number of babies is a variable amount, the number of babies on the ventilation shifts, is it not? It has to be, doesn't it? And yet they're telling us there's this static baseline of this 1%. Oh, hi, Tom. I'll add Tom to the stage now because Tom did some videos about this. Hi, good evening there, Tom. Nice to see you.
Oh, say hello.
Oh, lovely. That's a beautiful cat. What's his or her name?
He's a Cornish Rex. Sophina is the name.
Sophina, Cornish Rex, beautiful cat. Oh, that's marvelous. Can I ask you what your thoughts are about this at the moment?
Yeah, so I thought I'd just jump on there because you were talking about what the definition of the ventilated shift is, and I've been thinking about this all day. So
yeah, me too. Yeah.
So what it means is what they call a ventilated shift is a particular instance of one baby being present on one shift. So if you've just got one shift and 10 babies in the unit, that would be 10 ventilated shifts just in that one working shift. And if you've got 10 working shifts with 10 babies, that's 100 what they call ventilated shifts. And this is the main reason I thought the original Panorama was so misleading.
Yes.
Because of that, because they were conflating the two as if they were the same.
Oh, I see. Do you think that's what there's an oddity here that their initial claim was that Lucy Letby, and this is the thing I've been trying to do in the two videos I did today. Sorry, I can't keep up with the chat at the same time just at the moment, but I'll try and get back to the points being made. They initially said that there were 20 unplanned extubations across 50 ventilated shifts. That's right, isn't it?
That's what they originally said, but
that's
it
the
wasn't,
original thing. Yes,
it wasn't right, but yeah, that's what they said.
So hi there, Jenny. Lovely to see you.
I love to see you too.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming on. And so if they said that, so that's a figure of approximately, so that their initial claim was there were 20 extubations out of these 50 ventilation shifts. So that's a 20%. That's a 20% figure, isn't it? That's 20%. No, sorry. What does that mean?
That's the 40%, the 20 out of 50.
That's the 40. I beg your pardon. That's the 40. That's the 40%. And when they decrease the sample size to 11, and then they're claiming there are 4 unplanned extubations, then you're around the 36% mark. So they've still held on to this percentage of the whole somehow. But
yeah, 36%, and they rounded it up to 40 is like the nearest 10. And
how do you explain then, Tom? What was their reasoning for reducing it down to 4 out of 11 as opposed to 20 out of 50?
I think it's because they took the 40% from Mr. Baker at Thirlwall, and then somebody told them that Lucy had worked on 50 shifts. So from that, they concluded that there must have been 20 incidents. But I think it turned out the 50 shifts was wrong, so therefore the 20 was wrong with it, and actually it was only 4 out of 11. But the thing I want to know more about is where has this 11 actually come from, and what units is that in?
Yes, I want to say more about that as well, but just say hi to Jenny. And what are your initial thoughts about these more recent claims, this 4 out of the 11, if you've watched that aspect of it? Yeah, to use.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am, Jenny. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hi.
It's all bullshit.
Yeah, bullshit. That's what it is. I know
it's bullshit. It
It
doesn't
is.
matter. She was like, I used to be a preceptor, a trainer on an adult unit. I trained new people, nurses coming on. We took an assignment meant for one nurse. We did the assignment together, but my head was on the block. If anything went wrong, I was to blame. I watched my trainee like a hawk. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. And
Yeah,
plus,
doesn't
I
matter.
also gave, they would ask me to do the assignment. I would do the assignment, I think we should take, and what I think would help my trainee. So we would take complicated patients. Lucy probably had those complicated patients. Not all the babies were on vent. They would take a baby on a vent or something like that. So you would learn. Again, it's all this confabulation. It's all meant to, I'm throwing mud. Let's see what can stick on the thing. It really doesn't matter. It's just going to show you that these people, Judith Morris, Coffey, they don't like nurses. They're against nurses. It's like they're discriminating, and they have a bias, conscious or unconscious bias, against nurses. So they're going to do it. Just how is this different than you're discriminating against anyone else?
Absolutely, Jenny. I'm just going to bring in a comment that Off License has made, which is kind of cuts across some of the questions I was asking in the two other videos I made today. So Off License said, question, do all ventilated shifts start and end at the same time? This is the thing I was wondering. How is it split across the day, and how does that
I don't know.
How does that intersect with what they're calling work shifts as well? So do all ventilated shifts start and end at the same time? Also, how are neonates classed when they're put on or removed from ventilation partway through a shift? Another great question. This is all information areas that we're not aware of, are we, at this point?
No, and it's all a part of, wait, look over there. I forgot what they call it. There's a word they call it, but look over here.
Misdirection, misdirection.
Yes, it's look over here. Wait. Let's not pay attention thing. Let's misdirect here. That's all it is, Yeah,
absolutely. Can I ask another question of the chat and both yourself, Tom and Jenny, that I watched I watched Professor Gill's video, and he made an implication. He implied, and I don't know whether I've misunderstood him, but he implied in some way that Lucy Letby might have been actually doing the intubations at that level 3 unit. Is that likely? Is that possible even? Or is that strictly a doctor's job to do?
Unless I would imagine only nurse practitioners.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
I'm here in America. I would be shocked because she wasn't even at a nurse practitioner level. It was more like where we started off as a registered nurse. Okay, now we have added training as a neonatal nurse. She was not at a nurse practitioner like a Michelle Warden. What is that?
That's
her name?
Right, Michelle.
Yeah,
Warden.
I think she might have. If there was a nurse that could have done it, it would have been her. But I don't know if she could do it or not, or anything like that.
And what do you think about that, Tom? Have you got a view on that, whether that's likely at all?
It's a bit outside my area of expertise, really. But from everything I've just heard other people discussing, I wouldn't have thought she would have actually been doing the tubes. No.
Yeah, I'm sure. And the reason why I bring that up again is because of what that chap Coffey was saying, in that he created this false dichotomy of the idea of this alleged or apparent excess of unplanned extubation when Lucy Letby is cutting across these ventilation shift periods, where he says, well, it's either one thing or the other. Either you're a terrible nurse, or you've done something clinically wrong, or you've done something maliciously wrong. Now, he has no basis for stating either of those two, or to limit the potentials for just those two things, has he?
No, it could have been that her trainer was particularly bad at them.
Well,
it would have been her. It would have been that nurse that was training her that was off.
Not even necessarily.
It should go to her.
Well, it could be
necessarily the case.
The doctor that intubated the baby. It could be the fact that the baby's particularly. Sorry, I'm cutting. Sorry, Tom. You go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Then, not necessarily though, because I'm not even sure there is anything to explain yet. I think we're still at the stage where the numbers themselves look dodgy to me. I think it's almost getting ahead of things a bit to look for these explanations at the moment, because I'm not really satisfied that the numbers they've given are as much higher as they claim, because of this thing about the per baby
Yes.
being thrown in there, and in some of the versions of it, it's not per baby, and in some of them it is. I'm still not sure they've adequately dealt with this, and I think the new version they've put on actually is worse in some ways, because they've taken out the explanation of what the ventilated shift means, because that explanation was at least in the first version, but then they went on to contradict it. But in the new version, they've just taken out that explanation, and they're talking about the ventilated shifts as though they are the same as the working shift. So you can't see the contradiction anymore, but it's still wrong, I think.
Well, absolutely. And off license is kind of following up with a question or a statement here. So a 12-hour working shift could possibly cover 2 ventilated shifts, or could like bleed into 2 of these ventilated shifts either side. It could cut across 2 of them. So, and I was thinking about that in the videos I made earlier today, in the sense that, sorry if I might be shouting a bit. I'll try and quieten down a bit. I'm just really, it's wound me up something terrible today, because I know they're conning us. I know they're conning us. Mm-hmm. They absolutely are. So what was I going to say about that? We don't know. For example, they've got a record there stating that Lucy Letby was in that hospital on a work shift, but they're not necessarily tying in the extubation to a period in which she was physically there. She might have cut across into that ventilation shift, so-called, but they're not specifically tying it to necessarily to the time of the extubation or just before it, are they? Well, they're not showing us any evidence of that anyway. They're not making it very specific about when the unplanned extubation took place. Just that she was in the hospital at some point in a 12-hour period.
The evidence at Thirlwall is that she did 11 shifts in 2015. So it's 11 shifts, but that doesn't necessarily equal what they're calling ventilated shifts, because again, there's 1 ventilated shift per baby for every work shift. So if you've got 7 babies in the unit, every shift someone's at work is 7 ventilated shifts, because there's 1 for each baby as well as 1 for each working shift.
So the potential here is across the whole of 2015. Have I got this right, everyone? Have I got this right? So they're stating in the latest Panorama, she had something to do across 11 ventilated shifts. If you've got 7, 8 babies, let's say you had even 10 babies in one go, that's just basically 1 shift. So they're saying like it happened across potentially 1 day. This is that.
I think that 11 figure is the bit that's suspicious.
Yeah.
Because if there were 7 babies on that unit, that wouldn't really be 11. It would be 77. So it'd be 4 out of 70. Yeah. Be 4 out of 77, and therefore much lower percentage than they're claiming. And this is a bit I still think hasn't been properly cleared up at all. It's only 11 if there's only 1 baby. If she worked 11 shifts and there's 1 baby there, then that's also 11 ventilated shifts. That's the main thing I came on to say, really. I'm not sure I can.
No, that's brilliant, and that's exactly how I was looking at it as well. So just to use the 10 figure, because it's easier for me to count. So I'm not a maths person, but let's just say there are 10 ventilated babies on average across a full week. That's 140 ventilated shifts, isn't it? It's 20 a day times 7, 140. So let's say over 2 weeks of that, you're getting near 300 ventilated shifts. So you're expecting, and I don't know how near that is to the actuality, you're expecting at least 2 intubations every 300 ventilated shifts, based on their alleged baseline of 1% every 100. Because does that make sense? You've got 300 across 2 weeks. So you're expecting 3 unplanned extubations every 2 weeks. So for the whole of a year, you're looking at 73 unplanned extubations, if that 1% figure is right, if you were averaging at 20 ventilated shifts per day, because you're counting babies as well as
if you've got that many babies there. Yeah.
If just as a hypothesis, let's say it averaged out to 20 ventilated shifts per day because you're multiplying by the babies, you're ending up with an expectation at this alleged 1% expectation rate of unplanned extubations of 73 in a year. And yet they're making this huge deal of about 4 of them, essentially, as though that's a deal breaker for the whole year, really. But the other thing is, you know, that block that they show of the 11 shifts, we don't know whether that's 11 consecutive shifts, do we? We don't know that. Is that right?
No, it's not necessarily consecutive. No.
So
that 11 is all the shifts she worked in 2015, though, I think. So she worked 11 shifts, but the number of ventilated shifts depends on how many babies were there.
So it's all, so that whole package that Panorama did in the latest Panorama is complete. We can't take anything for granted from that, because they've not times it by the number of babies there at all. They've reduced it to, they're just looking at her shifts rather than, they're not actually talking about ventilated shifts then with that 11 then, are they?
There's one, I talked about it in my video, and I probably explained it in a more polished way there, but I think there's one way you could possibly legitimately make it 11, and that's if Lucy was assigned to one particular baby, and if that was the only baby she ever had any contact with during, or if there was only one baby at a time, even if it's different ones. If she only ever had any access to one baby at a time, and there's one particular baby you could always link to her, you could then maybe justify only looking at those 11 baby instances rather than the 77 or whatever. But that's only valid if all the 4 events occurred to her baby and not just any baby in the unit. So that's what I think ought to be cleared up as well. Were those 4 events babies that were assigned to her particularly? Because that may just about rescue their statistic, and then you can look at how you can explain it. But until they've explained that, I don't think you even need to.
No, absolutely. They haven't given us that. Yeah, they haven't given us that. And I forget what I was going to say about that, because there was in the Panorama program. Sorry, Jenny. I'll shut up in a minute. But in the Panorama program, she very specifically says when Lucy Letby, this was a shift in which Lucy Letby had contact or interaction with a baby. They don't make it specific and say with the baby that had the unplanned extubation. They're not explicit about that. And that really worried me as well. So in other words, it's just that she's around where a baby has an unplanned extubation, not necessarily the baby that she's designated to look after. What do you think, Jenny?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and let me tell you about neonatal nurses. I'm not one. I did adults. But I had a lot of contact with neonatal nurses. First of all, as a mom of a preemie child that was very sick and on a ventilator for a while. And secondly, as a nurse, I did chart reviews for our version of the NICU. These nurses are, oh my gosh, they are, I mean, they are protectant of their baby. Not only their baby, but it's like every baby that's in the NICU is their baby. They will protect their baby.
Yeah.
They will protect any baby. And I mean, they'll protect it against anything. So I can't imagine another, and all the other nurses would know that she's the trainee and stuff like that. They would watch her too if they got anywhere near their babies. I can guarantee you these nurses are, and I say this as a compliment, scary. I mean, when I would go do my chart reviews, or I'd have to talk to a parent for discharge planning, or have to talk to a nurse about a various baby in order to do the review for the insurance, I would very carefully tiptoe into the NICU because I didn't want to mess with the nurses. I didn't even get close to the babies because they are so protective of these very fragile babies. So I can't imagine another nurse wouldn't be screaming or like, I mean, they would put themselves, they would literally take a bullet for this baby. They would take a bullet for any of those babies if someone would come in. That's how protective they are, how strong they are, and everything like that.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
does anyone ever talk to the nurses? Yeah, ITV
No,
did.
because they're not talking. Well,
Right.
you know,
ITV did, but
yeah,
not this Panorama.
no, they don't. They don't
Oh
want
no,
to.
nurses would know, and stuff like that too. I would love to know what the nurses think of Brewery and Jaram and all them. How good they were
Yeah.
as a doctor. You know,
And the other
yeah,
thing that you're bringing up there, Jenny,
yeah.
is that this is a level 3 unit in which there's a much higher concentration, and there's meant to be of babies to nurses.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's a lot more one-to-one, so there's a lot more eyes in that unit than there is at COCH. So,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. I don't know how it's built. I know COCH was built like a regular nursery, level 1 nursery, how they used to always be, with several rooms. You would have like 10, 15 babies in each room in the days when we separated the babies for the moms and
yeah,
only brought the babies to the moms and certain scheduled things. Otherwise, the baby stayed in the thing. Otherwise, a regular neonatal nurse is a lot of time unit is one big room with a few rooms off to the side for isolation, but it's usually one big room, and it's a busy unit with several people. And you not only have nurses, you have respiratory therapists, you have physical therapists in there doing stuff, occupational therapists doing it, parents in there. I mean, so many eyes, so
yeah,
many eyes.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible, and people have been saying it wasn't feasible even at COCH. So it's even more not feasible
Oh, absolutely,
When
absolutely.
Lucy's in a trainee role as well, and she's, I'll try and keep up with some of the chat as well. I'm sorry if I missed people's comments. I looked at the transcript and it says ventilated shifts when Lucy Letby was or wasn't involved in the care of the baby. Wasn't involved in the care of a baby. Could you say a bit more about that, Melanistic Marble, please? Is the care of a baby, so which baby though? That the baby that has the unplanned extubation, or any other particular baby that's there? They're not being specific about any of this. It just gets pushed back into the fact that she's there when there's this. And here's another thing: is it not? These 4 events that have been narrowed down into this 11 ventilation shift period of time, even though they might not run one after the other, they could be the same baby extubating 2 to 3 times. It could be 2 babies who have extubated twice because they're moving around a lot.
Yeah, I saw it as a mom. I'm sitting there nursing my baby way back, way back when I had my preemie baby, and they're going, "Oh yeah, this one, hey doctor, so and so, this one just extubated itself again."
Yeah,
It was just being squirmy.
yeah.
Babies are squirmy.
Exactly. And here's the crux of the thing that was driving me mad today. Why should we believe? Why should we believe in this alleged baseline of 1%, i.e., one unplanned extubation every 100? Let me get this right. Every 50 days, so every 100 ventilation periods of time, blocks of 12 hours. Why should we believe that? Because that means that we have to believe that things happen in the hospital that are reported every time, and that isn't necessarily the case, is it?
No, and it could be, yeah, with statistics, it could be it's 1 to 10%. They could have just been talking about the lowest number versus the range is.
Yeah.
Kind of say.
Well, that's right. But I mean, to what degree should we be trusting in the scrupulousness of the doctors and trainee doctors at LWH when we know that in COCH they're not reporting all kinds of things?
No, and let me tell you, not the hospital that I retired at, but the hospital I was at before, they were messing with the statistics to make themselves look better. That's one of the reasons why I left. It wasn't with the babies. They didn't have a neonatal unit there and even a maternity unit. But let me tell you, they were messing with the statistics to make themselves look better in order to. It's easy to do. It's so easy to mess with the statistics, slightly not underreport that or overreport something. You overreport the good and underreport the bad. That's how you make your statistics look good. It's so simple.
That's right,
So
Jenny.
simple.
Melanistic Marble's clarifying here, and it's to do with that, the transcripts of that latest Panorama program, in which they do say it's a baby, not the baby. And that is crucial, because they want you to think it's that baby somehow, that she's gone in there and done it maliciously. And we have no information about whether she was even in that room at the time it happened, because we don't have the times it happened. They're not, I mean, are Moritz and Coffey interested in that aspect of it? Is there
No, they can't.
They don't care about it, do they?
Because they think themselves above a nurse. They think themselves, as there are a lot in the public that think nurses are lower class.
Yeah.
They're just too lower class, and they're not that intelligent. They're not that good. Even even in the movies and the TV shows, it's the doctors that get all the glory, and people seem to think that doctors know everything. Oh my God. Oh, I can't tell you how many bad doctors I've seen out there. And there are bad nurses too. Again, we have this unconscious bias that nurses cannot be trusted. Nurses are dumb. Nurses are low class. Why would you want to be a nurse when you could be a doctor? Are you too dumb to be a doctor? That's why you're a nurse.
Well, it's also, there's that attitude, but also when things go wrong, it's like the doctors can't fall under suspicion. It's as though they're deemed morally better. So it couldn't be, and that's why you end up with the rota chart. Oh, well, there's no point in having doctors on there, because that's an impossibility to consider.
Because they're gods. They have so much education. There's so much like that. Well,
that's the prejudice of this.
Yeah, it is absolute prejudice and discrimination. There is an unconscious bias against nurses in the public. That's first. And it's easy. Let's go after the nurse. I mean, because it's easier to go after a nurse than a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, off license says 1% sounds incredibly low, but that could constitute like potentially 2 every 3 weeks, depending on how many babies are on ventilation across that period of time. If there are an average of 10, 20 ventilation periods in one day, you've got 140 a week, nearly 300 in 2 weeks. You're expecting 2 every 3 weeks, 73 a year. But I'm pulling those figures out as a potential, but what we don't know is what are the figures, how many. We need to know how many ventilation periods in the full year of 2015, how many there are. And we also need to know in what way does the specific hours that Lucy Letby there worked there. Just going to add Tom again to the stage. We need to know. Hi again, Tom. We need to know how her working rota cut across those specific sets of 12 hours as well. But we don't have any of that information.
But I still can guarantee you, those nurses, if they knew she was doing something, I know neonatal nurses, they'd have physically tackled her. They'd have physically grabbed her. They would have done whatever they could to make sure that she wasn't doing anything wrong. They are the most strongest nurses they are, because they're dealing with the most fragile. They really are absolutely incredible nurses. I could not be a neonatal nurse and stuff. So this is just another way of, let's look over here, look over there, let's distraction, let's doing that. And that's what the other side is. I'm of the opinion we need to call them out and say, you're being discriminatory against all nurses. What do you got against nurses? Look at your unconscious bias. What is it? And stuff like that too. We need to call these people out for what they are. They are against nurses.
Well, they're trying to save their big story, their big narrative, and it's an active inspiration about that.
Would you blame a religion for something? It's wrong to blame the ills or to protect yourself or to do like a religion or a race or an ethnicity or anything like that. Why is it okay for you to go against nurses?
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. And yourself, Tom. So, what have you've got some other things you'd like to say, please, as well?
Yeah, there's one other thing just occurred to me, and that is how are they dealing with the possibility of multiple events during one shift? And I wonder whether they're considering that consistently because it's possible that if you had a particularly difficult baby or a particularly bad tube event, you could end up with, say, 4 dislodgements all in one like hour or over a couple of hours. So would you then count that as 4, or as all the 4 dislodgements attributed to Lucy when you're looking at her? But when you're looking at that 1% rate, it might only get counted once, because I think the way Baker expressed it is he said it occurs in 1% of shifts. So it's occurred in the shift. So you could just count that once looking at it that way. But then if you were trying to make it bigger, you could count it as 4. So that's another thing I think we ought to.
Yes, it absolutely is. And we've got an example of that from the COCH from baby K, isn't it? When there are 3 multiple attempts. So it'd be interesting to know how that would have been recorded. Was that recorded as one unplanned extubation or a series of 3 when the doctor had to get Jairam to come in and they did it 3 or 4 times in total?
What about the source? Who is this lawyer at Thirlwall? Was he a part of the prosecution team? Was he a lawyer that was representing who was he representing, and why was he there? Let's look at the source of this rumor or whatever this is too.
This is Casey Baker, isn't it? This is Baker at Casey. Can you remember, Tom, who he's specifically representing?
I don't know which one, but he was representing one of the families. But
yes.
I think it was pretty clear his intention was to try and firm up the conviction, because perhaps he sensed that it didn't really add up. So he thought it needs
does he know statistics? Again, look at the source. Again, but wasn't some of the lawyers that represented the parents were also part of the prosecution team and then flipped over to represent the parents too? Is this one of these guys?
I believe
so. Simon Driver,
Simon Driver, yeah. So they're kind of compromised. I'm not sure that's the right word, but they've got a foot in. Yeah, I
look at the source.
Look at the source. That's a very good point. What was I going to say about this? Is so my head's spinning with it, because I know it's not. I know what they're trying to do is just another con job on this, like they did. Oh, I know what it is. With baby K, in the initial trial, they couldn't reach a verdict, and it was the only one of those couldn't reach a verdict that they did a retrial. And in that instance, they had Jairam there with his story, which has then since fallen apart because of that email. And I think he's absolutely guilty of perjury there, and perverting the course of justice when he first raised it to the police as well, because of that email he sent. He knew he was lying when he first brought it to them to pique their interest. But here, in this case, retrospectively, presumably, we haven't got a doctor who stumbles upon Lucy Letby either just standing there doing nothing, as it were, in that same kind of storytelling, and then seeing her there doing nothing while the saturations are dropping. So they haven't got that to build into it. But all they've got is the facts of the prior convictions to kind of give this any kind of credence whatsoever, isn't it? They haven't got any extenuating, like, apparent witnesses to any of this, have they?
No. Yeah. One other thing I saw earlier was our good friend Dr. Oliver posted something about the usual average rate being, it turned out, 5% based on her source rather than 1%.
Oh, and that's a comparator of like similar hospitals at level 3, is it, sort of thing?
This thing about the average being 1% normally, it's very unclear how they work that out. And Dr. Oliver posted something on Twitter earlier showing it was 5%. I think it was 1 in 20. It was one dislodgement per ventilator day, which in our units is 1 in 20 ventilator shifts, because there's 2 shifts a day, so that'll be 5%. So it's already come up, if you use that instead, from 1 to 5%, and it's already gone down from 40 to 36 on the other side. So if you use that instead, it's come down from 40 times as many to only 7 times as many. So it's already far less noteworthy. Once you're dealing with these very small numbers, it's very sensitive to.
It's incredibly sensitive. So even if in that 11 shift period you'd had 2 instead of 1, you could account for one of the ones, because you could say, well, that's potentially one of the 1 in the 100. That's the 1%. The extra one kind of it doubles the percentage. So just one extra event doubles it, doesn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's right, isn't it? So that's how sensitive it is. And
numbers, yeah.
yeah, with the tiny numbers. And Dr. McConville was saying that as well. He did you? I got a bit lost because I'm not a sort of I found it hard to follow about these adding different levels of 5%. I don't know if either yourself, Jenny, or Tom.
Oh no, I mean,
Dr. McConville sort of he brought down the likelihood somehow. I don't know how you found that.
I did raise this with him before, that I don't think his method of doing that is right, and he didn't really accept that. Richard Gill said it's just the way medics look at things, so maybe that's the explanation. Medics look at percentages as things you add. But
beg your pardon. So we haven't had from Richard Gill yet his full take on this, because we haven't got all the information to really. I mean, my big thing at the moment is, why should we rely on this 1% figure? I know you said other people say it's 5%. Well, if there's this variability, then we're already in a world that you can't rely on these statements. And
I wouldn't be shocked if it's higher than 5%. And it also depends on the unit you're in, how high acuity and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if the range is even greater than that too. When you're talking about 5%, that's the average. But in statistics, there's always a range. It could be 3 to 10 or something like that. So it isn't just one number.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. If there is a range of percentages, which makes sense to me more than this baseline of 1% that you're meant to be like this godlike amount, that now you're comparing it with these 4 out of 11, and that's a solid figure of 1%. Why should we believe that? The biggest reason why I don't believe it is, I suspect that I don't necessarily. Why would I believe that every extubation is like written down in the notes, or finds its way into that data set? No. It could be in the notes, but it doesn't necessarily get pushed into that data set.
I can guarantee you it's not. If they're having a real busy day, again, these doctors are so busy with these babies. I mean, I've seen them just work. Oh my gosh, I've seen the unit when it was at its breaking point. Why would you take you would risk the life of another baby if you would always take the time to document every little nitpicking things at times. You just go on and do your things, and you try to do your best. You try to do your best with documentation. So just even if it's busy enough, again, you can't always document everything too. I mean,
well, it could be like when you're doing your driving test. If you're a trainee, you make absolutely sure you note down every single thing you see, but then once you qualify, you perhaps get a bit slacker, and you stop indicating at every roundabout once you pass the test.
Absolutely, that's a great thing. And again, I just remember the doctors that I worked with, the neonatologists, how good they were. And again, I was in my hospital was an excellent unit. These men and women doctors, my God. There were times where and they were all consultants, by the way. I saw them at times where it was so busy that they physically did not leave the unit for 24 hours. They were up for 24 straight hours, per se. Yes. And these are consultants. You would have never, Jerome, God forbid he should show up, but these guys wouldn't leave because they wouldn't leave because they knew it was busting at the seams and stuff like that. That's how dedicated they were. You don't see dedication in Jerome, Brewery, Gibbs, any of these guys at all. The dedication to do those extra hours, I saw it at my hospital. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's that Stuart Gillam did that recent video on Gibbs, and the fact he didn't seem to want to come in, basically, did he? In that overnight, he was on call, but he didn't really.
No, he phoned it in.
He phoned it in. That's the phrase. Yeah, that's
phoned it in.
Yeah, and took a chance on what the what the medical situation was really, and you know, at the expense of that baby. That's what I got from.
And didn't Michelle Warden, in one of her interviews, I think it was to the Lucy Letby analysis guy, say that the only reason Jerram came in for baby K was that the registrar said, "I've never seen a baby this way. You have got to get your butt in here, or else." The registrar basically said, "You were coming in, period. Otherwise, he wasn't going to come in."
Right. I mean,
yeah.
Some of the I forget some of the details. So was that the case in which the more junior doctor saying, well, he needed somebody senior to come in to actually?
He's never seen a baby this little. Well, he's never seen a baby that little. I think, wasn't it a 25-weeker or something like that? He said he's never seen a little baby, and they knew this baby was going to be born. So that's why but Jerram was present at the birth, but he had that register as the one who's intubating. He didn't intubate that baby at thing. He didn't mess around with the tubes until later on, until that baby was in the unit. And then he didn't know what he was doing.
Out of the multiple intubations of baby K, was the more junior doctor, how many of them did he do totally alone? Do we know that for certain?
I think it was in the delivery room. There was multiple attempts in the delivery room, which, okay, when a baby that tiny, it's not perfect. You would expect. But Jerram was there standing next to him. But Jerram, he was the one, I believe, doing the intubation in the delivery room. And then all of a sudden, baby's in the NICU, and then, the alarms are going off and stuff like that. And Jerram's like, oh, and I believe he started messing around. I believe, and I can't be perfect, that he was on the call to, was it Alderhay or Liverpool, to get this baby transferred. And I think my guess is that he was realizing, oh boy, they're going to find out that we screwed up. And that's why I think he went to try and fix the intubation and stuff like that, because he doesn't want to be, he knew that they were messing up. He wanted to make sure that the other hospital wouldn't realize what bunch of screw ups they were.
So what I'm thinking about this is that this full file that Cheshire Police have sent to the CPS, is it prospectively in relation to these 4 events that they're saying there was an unintended or an unplanned extubation, and what possible evidence? Well, I don't know. Are we meant to think that they can actually get Lucy Letby right by cot side where it happened at this specific time in the day? And how are they going to do that? How are they going to bring her there? Is there something in the notes that would? I don't think there would be, would there? After all this time, or at the time. Otherwise, why wouldn't they have looked into it at the time?
It doesn't look like it, does it? Because in that statement from Nurse Turner, was it, that I posted the extract from, that she said they'd lost all the records of who was even on what shifts. So,
it's a non-starter. It's a non-starter, then, isn't it? It's got to be, because
unless they found it again, I don't see how they're going to be able to present anything except this raised rate plus a lot of character assassination.
Is it conceivable that alleged raised rate, because I'm still thinking it's just an alleged raised rate because of this question about the baseline anyway, even though it doesn't necessarily, I mean, Lucy Letby, when that unplanned extubation happened, she could be in a completely different room with a different baby, couldn't she? Going back to the phrasing that came up in Panorama, and Melanistic Marble reiterated earlier.
She could be in the restroom.
Yeah.
She could be on break. She could be going getting herself something from the vending machine.
But she could she not also have finished her work shift? Yes, part of her work shift has cut across the ventilation shift, but she could have left 3 or 4 hours earlier. Or conversely, the unplanned extubation could have happened in a ventilation shift 3 hours before she arrives, but part of her work shift cuts across that ventilation shift. And so they just put those 2 things together, not even considering the actual time of this unplanned intubation. And are they able to marry those things up to say she was physically there in the hospital when it happened?
And plus, who was the guy that compiled the thing? Wasn't it Dr. I hate to use that word. Yoxel? Yeah, I mean,
I assume it was him. But
I thought it was him that did it. Who compiled the data for him?
Sorry,
He was asked to look look back and look, to see what Lucy was doing. Wasn't he asked or something like that? So again, let's look at the source.
Well, let's look at, yeah, but is it not also the case, well, where does Evans fit into this and his other 25 cases that he passed to the police that they seemingly put on ice? Well, some of those cases, I've seen interviews with him where he's talking about, I think she started off with these kind of like pulling away tubes for people in the past, and there's evidence of that going earlier back in her career. So was he meaning that? Was Evans also the source of this as well? Or both of them, or what?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I kind of forgotten about that. Yeah, he did say that at one point, didn't he? But earlier,
He did.
I'm not sure if that was at Liverpool or Chester. He was. I think that must have been Chester. I don't think he had the Liverpool records as far as I remember. But I might have to go back and refresh my memory on that.
But Yaxel, who's a friend of Brewery, who Brewery and Durham to some degree. Come on. There was some communications with Evans. We may not be able to prove it, but you have to wonder, or through another party might have been saying, hey, we're looking at Liverpool here. Someone's looking at Liverpool. I mean, a little, they're all to some degree interchanged and connected. He may have heard through the grapevine.
Well, it was actually made explicit that Brewery was talking to what he described as high-level people, i.e. other consultants at third-level units, about what he described as our problem. That was how he termed it. In other words, they were discussing the fact that they were focusing on a specific nurse because of the raised increase in deaths, relative increase in deaths at COCH. He made that very explicit that he was doing it. It was in other words, it had got out of the confines of COCH and was being discussed in other hospitals.
Oh yeah, they were talking over coffee or texting or whatever like that. They were all talking.
But he was literally visiting there. Now I can't remember whether that applied to Liverpool Women's Hospital, Alder Hey, or both. But explicitly, Brewery has said, and he's put it on in I think he may have said it at Thirlwall or at some point in time. He was discussing it, their problem, as they called it. This is before the police are involved, discussing it with other consultants at other hospitals, i.e. those one or both of the third-level units. Yeah.
Spreading the rumor.
Yeah, well, exactly. So then it's, yeah,
it was out there in the thing. And I cannot believe Evans said he saw a little bit in the Guardian newspaper. Oh, that's my kind of thing. Those guys talk to each other.
Oh yeah. Oh, without it, I never believed that at all. And we was always trying to get, what we were always trying to get is that the absolute date and time of his email. I wrote to the NCA. This is back in 2023. I wrote to them and I emailed them to try to get the exact time and date of the email to the NCA saying I've seen it in the paper. I'm obviously wanting, and if this was possible, not saying it would have been the case, but that the email he sent was prior to the first reporting in a newspaper. And if that, you got him banged to rights then. In other words, he hasn't seen it through the paper. But we couldn't get that. And
of course not. And that was, he just happened to be working with another case, and he just attached it to that or something. Wasn't that in the email that he was working on the case? And oh, by the way, there's something going on here, in Chester. Yeah. That's my kind of case. Wasn't that kind of the thing?
It was that, and I don't know if you remember, Tom, or you do, Jenny, or anyone in the chat. There was a particular name of his contact at the NCA. I can't remember. It was just the first name was used.
I can't remember the name, but yeah, I remember him saying that.
It's like Nick or something like that, or whatever. It was some kind of name like that. And yes, it was an addendum on apparently something that Evans had been working on in relation to the NCA, and another one of his cases, as it were. Little addendum to say, oh, I've heard about this apparently.
And I have such a good track record because I've only lost 1 out of 40. So, if you need someone to win a case, I'm the man.
Well, even the one he lost out of 40, he would still say that he lost that wrongly, as it were. It shouldn't have gone that way.
Of course.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because on Twitter, the guilty mob some of the lawyer guilty mob are constantly mocking that guy, Joe Morham. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, Jolin Morham, because he made a comment like that once about a case he lost, and they all mercilessly mock him all the time, saying they only lost on a deeply technical level. But yeah, that's exactly what their hero in this case, Evans, says, isn't that? So,
Yes, it is. I mean, really, he
I-
Evans wants to present the idea that he's actually perfect and he's got a completely unblemished record, and it was a failure of so that judge saying his evidence was worthless. It had to be the judge that's wrong, and it has to be Shu Lee and the panel that should get out more, or whatever the phrase would be. You know, that they don't know as much as they think they know. That's what you said about the panel.
And does any people? I don't think people realize how Shu Lee was part of that era in Canada and America and stuff like that, where the whole idea of what we do for neonates, how we transfer, how we designate, how we do this and that, he was part of that.
Yeah.
They're making sure that the Canada's neonatal whole way you do it, and then transfer and do all that stuff. He was part of that. That man is a god in Canada. He was
Yes.
part of the founding fathers of neonatology, of modern day neonatology. He wasn't just the writer of the paper. He was, rightfully so, one of the founding father gods, kind of a thing.
But according to Evans, he's just somebody should get out more, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And know a bit more, because he doesn't know it all, and he wasn't at the trial somehow, as though that matters. I mean, we've scotched that by now, that you have had to have been at the trial in order to understand this, haven't we? We're way past that, haven't we? You know.
Well,
because
I said if you were at the trial, you were misled. So
precisely.
You're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Being at the trial is not a benefit; it's a disbenefit, because you weren't apprised of the RCPCH report. You weren't apprised of all the facts of the grievance, for example. You know.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, sorry if I'm a bit hyper today, because it's just blown my. I know this. We know this is all crap. This thing. They can't make it work, can they? Is it possible that if it went to trial and the defense got some statisticians and tore it apart, I raised this as a question in an earlier video today, is it possible that because of the fact of the convictions hitherto, they could still get it over the line, that a jury would still say, well, I don't care what the statisticians, this is a serial killer, so it's got to be. What do we think?
I think, unfortunately, it's a possibility.
That's what I thought.
You'd hope it wouldn't happen, but
you'd hope it wouldn't happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Mark, I'd like to say.
Retrial,
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, sorry. That was it. Really, similar to the Baby K retrial. There wasn't really anything more there either.
Well, no, and they had to take the hit on the timing and the exact timing on that one, didn't they, as well? So, and they still got it over the line.
Saw her doing nothing. Shouldn't be enough evidence. But.
Well, now there's a reason to be optimistic here, Mark. Okay, think about the BBC thing, how quickly they had to redo all that and reissue that thing. They must have gotten massive blowback.
Yes.
Massive blowback. And for them to have, and this is the vaulted BBC that I'm assuming, that they consider themselves gods. They had to basically redo everything. I mean, for them to say, oh, my bad, I mistake, that quickly. So there must have been massive blowback, which has got to be a source of optimism.
Well, that's true, and they apparently they sent this letter of apology to Mark MacDonald, haven't they? And that's what.
Yeah,
comes
they're
up.
willing. They had to eat some humble pie here.
But what they've ended up with this 4 out of 11. What more can we say about that? I don't know. So we've got this whole idea, as you're saying. What is the? I mean, just to go over it again, I don't want to keep sweating it, but if it's 11, is it the case that anytime any trainee goes to that third level unit and covers any aspect of a job in that unit, they are cutting across ventilation shifts? Because there's always a proportion of those babies, maybe a high proportion, I don't know what it is, of those babies being ventilated at any given time. So that, in other words, every work shift cuts across or is happening at the same time as a ventilation shift. That's right, isn't it?
Well, the ventilation shift isn't a unit of time. I don't want to, if I'm repeating myself too much.
It's a 12-hour unit of time, isn't it? But we're not sure when it begins and ends, how the days split up.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know when it begins and ends, but I mean, I suppose they may not begin and end at the same point. It should, if you had a large data set, it would cancel out. But yeah, with like 4 events, they could have been at times when she hadn't started yet, or times she just left.
Exactly. We need to know exactly when I know to fight this stuff, because it's like fighting zombies, really. It's fighting the undead. But we need to know exactly how her work shift pattern, how the rota of that intersects with these 2 sets of 12 hours. And then how many babies in each ventilation 12-hour period, because that's how you get how many shifts. So if there were 7 babies in 7 babies on ventilation on a 12-hour period, but she's only down for, this is not what's not making sense to me. If there are so many babies being ventilated, are we to believe then that her whole interaction with LWH in the whole of the year only covers 11 ventilation shifts? But that's what you were saying earlier, wasn't it, Tom, that you think that 11 might apply to working shifts as opposed to ventilation shifts? Is that right?
That's what it said in the Thirlwall statement, that she did 11 shifts there in 2015. So saying it's 11 ventilator shifts or 11 ventilated shifts implies they're only counting 1 baby as applying to Lucy.
Yes.
Rather than all the babies in the unit.
But they're not being explicit that they're doing that, are they? They're not saying that they're doing that. They're not. They're leaving it all wide open for us to kind of just get the headline of, oh, it's 4 out of 11, and it really should be, I know this doesn't make sense, 0.1 out of 11. You know. Hi Tracy, I want to add you to the stream, but it says I can't do it because Tracy Heaford-Crewe. I can't do it because you need to connect your mic and camera, please. If you could do that.
Oh, and can I comment about Lynn Salter just put?
Oh yeah, please. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting behind.
She is no. That's okay. No. Lynn, you are absolutely correct. I was a trainee. It was an adult unit. I was a trainee. I trained. We call them preceptors. A training thing. Again, if something would have happened to that patient while I am training that person, being with that person, it's my head on the block, not the trainee, unless the trainee did something beyond stupid. But again, absolutely. So if they're going to say Lucy did it, they got to go with the nurse. And who were the registers and stuff like that too. So Lynn, you absolutely bang on. You got it correct.
Yeah, that's a great point, isn't it? And what purpose, why is Lucy at that third level unit? What techniques, what is it? Because she's there to look after babies of higher acuity, I presume, even though
she was training. She was a regular registered nurse.
Yes.
And then you go to the next level where you have like a specialty kind of a situation. So she's learning, she was a specialty. So she would learn special things. That's why she was had to deal with a lot of the patients at the Countess of Chester and stuff like that. It's because she had that additional training to be higher level. She wasn't at the level of the Michelle Warden, who was like we would call her probably a nurse practitioner, but she had a specialty and learned a specialty learning. She had a few months of that extra intense training, so she could go above and beyond kind of situation.
Well, according to what Panorama are telling us, well, how much time did she have? If what I'm, so I'm going to get back to this thing that if babies are always being ventilated 365 days of the year at that level 3 unit, so there's always a certain amount of babies being ventilated. So there are always ventilated shifts every time you do a work shift there. And yet they're saying, they initially said it was 50 work shifts, 50 ventilated shifts. And then they brought it down to 11. And I just don't understand how and why that can be. You know, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's down to this thing about whether it's per baby that Tom's saying, isn't it? That's the only thing that can explain it.
I think they've always counted it as one baby, so the ventilated shifts always equals the actual shifts. That's my understanding of it. After today's change, it looks like they're always treating them as the same, so as if it's one baby. I don't know exactly where they got the 50 from, but it looks like there were more shifts in 2012. Is probably the
And that was probably when
short
she was
answer.
probably training to be a nurse, to be a registered nurse. That's part of the training. You go through, you have so many days of psych training, so many days of OB/GYN, so many days of medical surgical. That was, I think, when she was being a registered nurse while she was in university.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is happening in 2015, isn't it? And she was also there. There's this very vague statement. I'll just say, Tracy, I did add you, and I was just going to say hello and welcome you to the screen, as it were, but you disappeared. But maybe it's technical problems. Hopefully you'll come back, and hopefully anyone else. Oh, you're back again. That's great. So hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Hi. What are your thoughts on this, please, if you'd like to say?
I'm just trying to find out when the information was gathered.
Yeah,
Because
when? Yeah.
if anybody's read Michelle Turner's statement to the Thirlwall, all data was lost regarding Lucy.
Yeah.
So they lost the swipe card data, I think it was 2020 during the system upgrade, and they couldn't find her shift roster. So anything that they've gathered must have been done before the upgrade on the IT system, surely.
Yeah, I touched on this on my video today as well. Richard Gill said that Yoxall had already completed his report before they lost the data.
Yeah,
Although I don't.
2015 was it?
Yeah, I think 2015 or 16 he was contacted while they were raising their first concerns. But I still don't quite understand that, because if he'd recorded it, they wouldn't have lost it, because they'd have it still, because he would have recorded it. That's
It's very
the bit where
strange.
it's lost me. So I'm not really sure in what sense they have lost it, and I suspect they don't have it, and they've only got an inadequate note of it from him.
Right.
I think it was also mentioned that any shifts that she had done would be in her book or in her student record or something. But if all the evidence was gathered, or all the information was gathered by Yoxall, why has it taken so long to go to the CPS?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Well, because it's so. I mean, if it's even weaker than all the other stuff, they thought, well, we're not going to take a chance on this because we can't put her cot side at a specific time when the saturations are dropping. We can't do a baby K situation. We haven't got a Jyaram to bolster it, have we? I think maybe it's that. You know.
I suppose what they'd say is they've been too busy with the first set of charges, but no, it's not really good enough, because they could have brought these charges at the same time if they were strong. But if all they've got is the guilt by association of already being a convict, then they couldn't have done that. So that kind of shows you that they shouldn't really be doing it now either.
Indeed, and should we assume that these would be or be worked up to or framed as attempted murder charges then? But what was the effect on the babies? This is what we don't know from the medical notes of those babies at the time. Do they need to show that there were these saturation drops, and for how long, and in the same way that was presented?
That's a whole other thing about attempted murder as well. hasn't been touched on for a while. But what was that guy's name? Is it Liberated Mind? He
Racing
seems
did
to
a lot on
stop
that.
now.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
talking about this, wasn't he, as well, about attempted
very,
murder.
yeah.
How exactly have they been proving any of these babies that survived were attempted murder? Because that requires a specific intent to kill and not just to cause injury.
Yes,
And
indeed, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what injury was caused to these 4 events out of the 11? The 4 out of the
it's not necessary to cause injury to be guilty of attempted murder, but you do have to have a specific intent to kill, and it can't be anything less than that. Unlike murder, where you don't actually need a specific intent to kill, you only need a intent to cause serious injury. But for attempted murder, you must intend to kill, and it's extremely unclear to me how they've actually been proving that in any of the attempted murder charges. It just seems to have been completely fudged, sort of on the back of the other charges, really.
and that's why quite a large preponderance of them ended up with a no. They didn't even they didn't reach the verdict for the majority.
On
Yeah,
the back of the insulin, I suppose they were saying there the only possible thing you could have intended was to kill, and therefore it's that thing about if you accept those charges, once you accept that, you can then
Accept
infer
them
that
all.
about all the others. It's also interlinked and self-supporting. It is a huge shambles now. And if you're just down to there was a rise in incidents, but we don't even know what really happened.
no,
Almost literally making it up now.
Compared to all the cases in which they couldn't reach a verdict, these prospective ones that they've sent to the CPS, if they're attributed to these 4 out of the 11 events, as it were, of unplanned extubation, they've got nowhere near the same level of quote unquote evidence that would have had for like the baby K case. They haven't got anything to stand it on, have they? Other than just the relative change that they're alleging, a relative change to the baseline. That's all they've got, isn't it? Presumably.
Yeah. It seems like it, yeah.
Which shouldn't even reach a charge, though, should it? What do you think, Tracy? Should that even reach a charge? I don't know if Tracy's there.
Sorry,
Tracy. Yeah, or Jenny, or anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so bizarre. I feel like I'm in a Monty Python skit.
Yes, it's all surreal.
It's like the Monty Python skit. From Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The whole thing about the witch. Well, this is connected to this, so therefore, how he was saying if she would float in water, if wood would float in water, or something like that. Therefore, she's a witch. It's the same thing. Yeah, that whole scene.
Either way, you lose. David Miller makes the point. The bottom line that 11 is too small a sample size to come up with any meaningful data. Am I wrong?
No, he's right. He's absolutely right.
Yes, absolutely. And as we've said earlier on in tonight, it could have been one baby with 3 cutting across 3, in consecutive 3 ventilation periods of time. One baby that they had a real difficulty keeping intubated, isn't it? It could have been that. And that could have been known. It ends up being this data thing, but on the ground at the time, that could have been known in the talk of the unit. Like, we've got this one baby who keeps extubating. That could have been.
You all know who the nurses know who the difficult ones are on the thing. Whether or not you're the nurse or not, they all know. The ones, because they all see the monitors, they all hear the monitors, they all know it. Absolutely.
And all that could have been just lost, and you end up with just these figures, just these comparators of this alleged baseline of 1%. How long have LWH been recording unplanned extubations? How do we know? Have they been doing it for years? If they've been doing it for years, are there any other instances where there's a spike of, let's say, 3 or 4 when there should have been only been at the most 1?
We may have been, because there are all these studies giving these averages, so it's quite possible that everywhere does record them.
Yeah, so
Very
what we need to see, or
easy.
somebody needs to see, if it becomes something they have to fight, we
And
need to
what
see
is that
data
rate
going back
for?
years. Yeah.
What is
What's
that
the
rate for other trainees? Would be the better, not just the
Yeah.
general average around the world for all doctors and nurses, but other trainees in this hospital would be the obvious thing to go to.
It
I bet
would
it
be,
isn't.
but it would be, but what the question that makes me want to pose is, why is the idea of and this goes back to what Coffee says, why is the idea of an extubation being linked specifically to a nurse as opposed to a doctor, as opposed to a problem with, we had that thing where there was a particular make or a company that was making those tubes and they were withdrawn from the market. I can't remember the company's name. That cuts across this time as well. So there's all these other factors which I don't see any of them attaching themselves to a trainee being there, a nurse being there, but it seems to go in other directions for me anyway.
I mean, in the woolliest possible sense, the link is that they've got this now supposed pattern of behaviour of pulling the tubes out, and they got a conviction for it. So
That's it, isn't it? That's
so
all it
they're
is.
saying she must have also been doing that before.
That's
But
all it is.
it doesn't actually make sense, because what happened to the babies if she did that? Why didn't anyone record that something bad had happened to them?
Absolutely.
Are they saying she
Yeah.
Are they saying she put the tube back in again and changed her mind about killing the baby? I mean, what is the actual theory there? I don't know.
Well, you mentioned liberated mind. He went into quite in depth about this thing about can you remove the tube from its? Can you unsight the tube without it being apparent on the surface level as you're looking at the baby's face with the tube in its face in its mouth, that in the baby's mouth, that you don't know that it's been unsighted, and then the front part is pushed back. Is that right? What do you think, Jenny, about that?
The alarms would be going off if it isn't
Yeah.
in the right place. The oxygen level would be things. If you look at the ITV thing, documentary where they showed how they used a doll, but they showed how they intubated a baby and how easy it was just when the baby turned its thing, how they couldn't raise the thing. So again, these alarms would be going off. Oh my God, all hell would break loose with the alarms.
The alarm's going off, the saturations are going down.
Oh my God, yeah.
Very quickly, wouldn't it? And that would be recorded, wouldn't it? That.
It should be. I'm assuming. And another thing I'd like to say is that these babies are in incubators. Do you know how hard it is? It isn't just easy to get into an incubator. I mean, you can't. The holes or the lifting or something like that. You would see someone, entering their hand, putting their hands in an incubator.
Yes.
It's not that this baby's just laying there on a table or an open thing. These incubators, they're encased. They're supposed to represent their special humidity and oxygen that goes out. You want to keep these babies in a special humidified, warm thing. So these are almost like, I don't want to say, they're encased. So to get into an incubator, you can't sneakily get into an incubator.
You'd be seen. There's people around. We haven't seen any. I don't think I've not seen any layout of the level 3 unit at that hospital. In other words, you're not tucked away like you can just do this kind of stuff without being observed, can you? And there's
no babies are tucked away. I can tell you now.
Exactly.
That way you can have eyes on. Easy to have eyes on them, even if that baby, like we had an open area where there was a lot of babies, but we had a few rooms too that sometimes a baby had to go into isolation. You could still see through that thing and see anyone could have eyes on those babies real quickly, because that's how quickly they decompensate. So it's easy to keep eyes on a baby.
So if the unplanned extubation happens, the alarms go off. The levels falling. People are it's a rapid response situation. People are going to
yes and no rapid response. A lot of these alarms go off a lot of times. What the nurse does is go and see real quick, eyes on that baby. Could it be maybe the sensor's not on the thing or something like that? These nurses are so good. They put eyes on the baby and they can tell if that baby's decompensating or not. or they give it a few minutes, because sometimes even the alarm would go off and the baby readjusts itself. It stopped doing it too. So you take a couple minutes, or just those few moments, and look at it, and you go eyes on that baby, and then you can, nurses, they know.
And what's the time gap between an extubation, either caused by the baby moving around, and the alarm going off? How many seconds?
Oh, it would. I can't give you seconds, but it would be so quick.
It'd be very quickly.
Wherever the sensor is, as soon as that sensor picks it up, it would be very quickly. It would be very quick.
The reason I'm going down that line is really, well, as soon as that happens and it becomes apparent something's happened, everybody knows where other people are around that baby, don't they? Who's just been there.
You look, everyone, as soon as that alarm goes up, everyone's eyes just goes to that alarm and goes to that baby. It's everyone in the unit or anywhere near that baby. No matter if it's your baby or not, they're gonna look on that. They're gonna look and see what's going on. Like I said, these nurses, it isn't just because they're assigned that baby, it's like all of their babies are their babies.
It's a joint responsibility.
It's a joint absolutely. And that's why they were saying, well, why was Lucy always there at the thing? Of course she would come running. She would be a horrible neonatal nurse if she didn't come running when there was an issue.
Absolutely. And so where I'm getting to also here is that, there's a much lower ratio of nurses to neonates in the level 3 unit. It's many more eyes on what's going on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the ratio to nurse to ratio is much lower. Could be 1 to 1, could be 2 to 1, or whatever. Depends on the level, the baby.
And you've got the very specific relationship of Lucy Letby as a trainee, in which she's being very closely shadowed by the trainer, isn't she?
She could be closely shadowed by the trainer, or the trainer, or either she is shadowing the trainer or the trainer is shadowing her. I mean, they are like this. That's how I was when I had my trainees. When I was a preceptor, I was like this. I had eyes on what they were doing at all time.
So we're meant to believe here that Lucy Letby, well, if the full file going to the CPS are about these 4 events, that the trainer seemingly allowed Lucy Letby to extubate out of malice.
I guess the
baby 4 times, or 4 separate babies.
Yeah, the trainer was off. I guess having coffee all the time and leaving her alone. No.
And there are other people there around as well.
Absolutely. Everyone knows and I can tell you, all the nurses knew, okay, we got a trainee here. They had eyes on her too. I can guarantee you. It wasn't just a person training her. It was all the nurses in the thing.
Absolutely, Jenny. It's the same. Paul said LWH have 60 neonate deaths a year. Obviously, there's going to be a higher rate because they're much, there's very low gestation babies, much higher acuity. So that's come up there. Off license says, I wonder what the health outcomes of these babies were that experienced extubation. It's quite possible that there weren't any negative outcomes. It was just a resighting of the tube, wasn't it? But this is something we don't know.
Or the baby, they could have looked at the baby and said, oh, how well is this baby doing? Good, maybe instead of extubate, maybe we can now put him on CPAP. If they're able to squirm like this, maybe, it might have just been, it's not unheard of for an adult to extubate themselves, and they're like, well, maybe that's a sign here too. So again, I don't know with neonates and stuff like that too. It's hard. You can't equate neonates and adults. It's a totally different thing.
No, and the answer to this question off license poses is that if there were minimal or no negative health outcomes, how can you substantiate attempted murder? I suppose what Tom was saying earlier, isn't it? It's the idea that there was an attempt made that, had nobody seen it, had nobody rectified it, it could have resulted in the death. Therefore, it's attempted murder as a kind of an intention. Is that what you were saying, Tom?
Yeah, but what is the intervening act that stopped the babies dying, though? If that's the theory.
Yes.
We don't know. It's all a bit speculative, I suppose. To some extent, we'll have to see what emerges. But if they're saying she's pulling these tubes out with the intention of causing the baby to die, but presumably none of them did, or we'd have heard about it,
Yes,
So
we would have
what
heard.
actually then happened that saved their lives?
The alarm, I'm presuming, as Jenny said, the alarms go off. They
Mm.
recite the tube, and at the time, not at the time, because this is 2015. They're not thinking. They don't know that there's a made-up serial killer on the loose. So they just say, "Oh well, that baby just self-extubated." That's all they say, don't they? Surely,
Yeah.
or
Again,
that
it's a
it was
theory that
improperly cited in the first place.
it's like Mervyn was saying in that thing. It's Lucy's the least effective serial killer in history. She keeps making all these attempts to kill tiny babies that can't even move, and fails more often than she succeeds. It just doesn't
And I think it's
make
also
any sense.
weird when it
Yes.
comes to female serial killers, they are so incredibly rare. Just serial killers in general, the female ones are rare. And the female ones we know of, they've all had issues prior to their serial killing. And here Lucy was as plain as beige. She would be the first serial killer in world history to have not had psychiatric or psychological issues prior to her killing.
Absolutely. It's just insane. This, I mean, what they're trying to do. I don't think they can make it work. And so if they can't make it work, and they know they can't make it work, they know they can't reach a charge. I've thought, and I know other people have thought this. It's kind of some kind of to create this noise to kind of push people in this other direction and say, oh well, by the way, it's almost. It can't work for them indefinitely. It's this idea we're still investigating as a holding pattern, as a holding technique to kind of say, well, all your quote unquote noise, as Thirlwall would call it, means nothing, because don't you know there's still bad stuff that we need to uncover here. But they never have to fully uncover it or bring it to an end. They don't have to bring it to. But they're boxing themselves into a corner, aren't they? Surely.
Well, and I look at them as kamikaze pilots in World War II. As we were getting closer and closer, the Allies were getting closer and closer to winning the war with against Japan. That's when they started the kamikaze pilot. They were throwing everything. And that's exactly what they're doing. They are cornered,
Yeah.
Mark. They are absolutely cornered, and they're acting like someone who was cornered.
I think so too. And just Paul mentions here about, and somebody else did before, sorry, I can't remember, the storytelling that Panorama, Coffey and Moritz engages in is all part of it. The end of it is like, okay, there was an increase. They don't say what the figures are, but there was also, it was less than in 2012. So the subtext of this is that storytelling. This is the putative serial killer in her infancy in 2012, testing things out, maybe doing a few tubes. By the time 2015 gets in, she's on it much more. And then when 2015 back at COCH, she's really going for it. That's the storytelling that they've been engaged in without. So they want to bring in 2012 in and make you kind of think, oh, well, those were the nursery slopes of a serial killing career. That's what we're attempting to murder.
How can we not laugh? I'm laughing like it's a Monty Python skit.
Because people like Moritz and Coffey are living in a fictional world around this.
Well, let them. I want their stupidity to be out there, because they are digging themselves their own grave. They're showing their stupidity. And again, this is doing nothing to help their career. It is destroying their career. In the end, it will.
Well, Paul says, but she didn't do anything in 2013, 2014 at COCH, rather strangely. But this is where we come back to Evans now. And why did the police not seemingly follow up at least 25 other quote unquote suspected harm cases, possibly even 50? I think it's probably the same 25, but he says it to different journalists in two separate occasions that he's done 25 after the first arrest. This is after his first reports. This is in addition to all the ones that end up on the indictment. 25 other suspected cases go nowhere. Then he tells Philip Hammond that he does that again in 2023, but he hasn't heard from the police. In 2024, Philip Hammond relates that Evans tells him, I sent another 25 cases in 2023. I've never heard anything about them. maybe they apply to what Paul's saying here, 2013, 2014, but we'll never know. But it shows that the police can just drop 25 Evans allegations just like that, but yet they've gone back to Liverpool. They're focusing on Liverpool Women's Hospital. Why are they doing that? Is that because they know Evans is an albatross around their neck now? Is that the reason? Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, Mark, you make perfect sense.
Does it?
Yeah, they know he's a complete idiot now.
He's a what's the phrase? He's become an albatross for them. They keep saying don't do any more interviews, and he won't stop now. And he literally said, "Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It does not matter what the method of." But Goss chimed in on that as well, didn't he? He told the jury and said you don't have to be aware of the specific method of murder. Just accept that there was ill intent. That's what that jury system, it validated Evans.
Has Goss been like, is he known as what we would call a hanging judge in America? Is he known as like a judge that is totally for the prosecution? I mean, does he have any kind of a reputation as that? Do we know?
Do you want to say anything about that, Tom? I know a couple of things about him.
I don't know a great deal. The only other thing I've noticed is that he was involved in the trial of that firearms officer, which my personal view was that was a very near miss of a miscarriage of justice, where Goss refused to admit evidence that the suspect was a dangerous criminal, and the jury weren't told about that, but they cleared the officer in the end anyway. I thought that was a bit of a near miss, that they could have wrongly convicted him due to that. I'm not aware of any of his other cases.
I'm aware of two things. One came up when I haven't been on Twitter for a long time, but there was a gentleman on Twitter that was sent down for a certain period of time in prison, and he believes he was total miscarriage of justice. That was his point of view, and had a website saying that Goss was bent, basically. So that's one person's experience, and that's their view on it. The other way Goss stands out, he's only, apparently this is true, he's only one of two judges in British judicial history that have dismissed the jury and then given the verdict purely by himself, because he says, I can't remember the exact. There's an article you can find out there which describes this, but he kind of makes judicial history in a way. He's only one of two that have dismissed the jury and actually gave the finding of, I think, either guilt or not guilty himself, just purely on his own. And
because he has such high thoughts of himself, kind of like, I guess wearing that wig and having those weird stuff, he thinks of himself. I looked at Judge Goss and thinking to himself, he's too big for his britches, as we would say in America.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, he's an outlier in that sense. He is one of a very, well, two basically, when that's happened in English jurisprudence, whatever you want to call it, throughout time. And whether he was justified in doing that, apparently he's got the power to do that, but he is one person who did do it. There is an article, you could find it somewhere. If you put in Goss and dismissing the jury, the judge makes a finding of guilt on their own. So you can find that out there. It's been 18 months since I read it, so I can't remember all the details. But so they're the two things I know about him.
Another thing I kind of noticed, if I you don't mind me chiming in, I hope I'm not taking up
no, not at all.
Other person's thing. Is that I read an article now. I forgot what thing. It just came out, and it gave us the background of Mark McDonald, total working class. The guy left school at 16, went and worked at a hospital as an orderly kind of situation, worked as an orderly way to think. So I'm wondering if some of this is pushback against Mark McDonald because he is not establishment. It is, although they're using Lucy Letby as a way to get back to him because, he is going against the establishment too. So I'm wondering if some of this, to some degree, is they're trying to slap him down too.
I think that's likely. He's an outlier in that system, isn't he? Really, he's someone that has been involved in other miscarriages of justice cases for. I think, did he quote the time period, 20 years or something? Tom, do you know that? Long-term
But his
fighter.
roots were working class. He didn't go to those private boys' schools that all these people went to,
Right.
and stuff like that too. You know, I mean, I my understanding is there's quite a. You are where you went to school, according to the elites. If you didn't go to that private school, whatever, you're not. You know, you're not part of the club. So how dare you even attempt to do the club? If you get my drift.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think there's definitely an element of that.
Yes,
He is also representing Ben Geen, which is a slightly similar case.
Yeah,
I'm not quite so sure of the innocence in that case. I do wonder maybe if that doesn't entirely help the fact that Mark McDonald's also involved in that, but I suppose he believes in that as well, and that's his right. I think there's enough about it that I certainly have doubts as well.
Yes, I've got definite doubts about the one, although haven't got into it in anything like obviously what we've done with vis-a-vis Lucy Letby. Just want to welcome 19 nurses to the screen, as it were. Hi there.
Hi, Mark.
Hi,
everybody.
Hi, nice to hear you. Yeah. How are you feeling about this? Did you watch the latest Panorama there, 19?
Yes, I found it a little bit disconcerting that Panorama even brought up Liverpool Women's, because there's an ongoing investigation. It's different talking about what's happened in the past, but this is prejudicing any potential jury if they do charge her.
It is, isn't it? It is, when you've got journalists saying, "Oh, this is damning." It's either got to be malicious, or she's a terrible nurse, and that false dichotomy that Coffey raised. You know, yeah, absolutely. They
find it
yeah,
quite frightening, really.
it is frightening. Do you think are they allowed to? I mean, allowed. You know, morally it's horrible, but are they allowed to do it prior to a charge? I.e., if the CPS come back and say, "Okay, we're going with," they're going to set a time for a trial. You know,
I think,
and they'd have to stop them.
Sorry, I think under common law, that if a police investigation is happening, anything that can prejudice that investigation can be deemed as contempt of court, even though it's not got to court at the moment.
Oh, I was more of the impression that, I don't know if because I'm not, that the idea of sub judice is that you know that the charges haven't been filed, and there isn't going to, we don't know if there's going to be charges, or even and hence not a trial. That there's this kind of window that they're allowed to speculate in, but they would have to shut off as soon as. Is that not the case? I don't know.
I think Victoria Prentice, when she was the Attorney General, sent out some form of a message, I do have it, to journalists with regard to Russell Brand.
Oh, right.
He had not been charged at the time. It was just accusations following the Channel 4 documentary. And her message basically was that people need to be mindful and need to be careful of prejudicing any current investigation.
But it's more at the level of a request that this would be a good idea, rather than being able to enforce it, though, isn't it? Do you think?
They can enforce it.
Can
and
they?
It can be contempt of court under common law.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Is that different in America, Jenny? I mean, it's different, isn't it?
I have no idea, but you know what? They are freer, absolutely freer. I feel sorry for you guys. You know, our Vice President J.D. Vance went to England not too long ago and said, or either that or Keir Starmer came here or something, and he said, "You guys don't have freedom of speech over there. You really don't. I mean, we are so much freer. I feel for you guys. I really do."
Oh yeah, well, Starmer says we've had freedom of
That's
speech
what he said. Yeah, that's what he said
long
to Trump
time,
and
but
stuff like that. But who was that? Who was that poor mother that was thrown in jail for having a Facebook
Lucy,
thing?
you're referring to possibly another Lucy Connolly, possibly
Or
30.
Sue Connolly, the mother that the
She
children
lost
that
a child, yeah, and she
yeah
wrote something unwise and possibly borderline, but
yeah,
she
but she deleted it, but she was
deleted it.
thrown in jail for like 2 years or something like that.
31 months, yeah, that's right.
That would never ever happen here. It would be. It's just would laugh at that, and people that were, and I saw old, after the those horrible knife attacks. Was it last summer?
Yeah, in
The
South, yeah.
and the kid that did the man that killed all those girls. There were old people posting things on Facebook like, what is going on here? And here they were. You can see. We saw footage here of the police coming in saying, I could arrest you or give you a ticket for just putting that thing on Facebook. I mean, that would never happen here.
Yeah, they went to town. They went to town on all that, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, it's just so bizarro. That's why you guys are taking to some degree. I'm wondering if you all are taking a risk speaking up too about this.
We'll soon find out. I don't know,
I
but
think
Can I just
there is a problem with our justice system. And just getting back to Lucy Letby's case, what I find absolutely astounding is that the consultants involved in this case, the accusers of a crime, are then asked by the police to investigate the crime.
yeah,
I think Stephen Brearley said in the first Panorama documentary, in a BBC article, and then in Thirlwell, that he found the insulin results when he was investigating some cases for the police. Now, this is touching evidence. The medical notes are evidence. So there is a potential, and I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything, but there's a potential of evidence being polluted. And then not only that, then he's like one of the chief witnesses in the trial.
well, that's right. I mean, yeah.
There's something seriously wrong in how our justice system is working at the moment. I'm sure.
It goes back to what Jenny was saying much earlier in the conversation about, because these doctors are held in such high esteem automatically. Well, why not have them as both witnesses and investigators and everything? And obviously, beyond any reproach, and you couldn't even consider them as suspects because they've already given you a sheet of showing that it's just the nurses that we need to look at here. Well, just one nurse, really. So that's the baseline that they set up, isn't it? Really, that they're the police are approaching those consultants with this false respect, really, about who they are. Really,
I think everybody in the unit, if they thought some, malfeasance was happening, everybody in that unit should have been persons of interest.
Yes, indeed. Well, indeed, yeah, absolutely, and
everybody, so you see the bias, and it's most probably it's unconscious bias. Don't think people set out to make this case what it has become, but you can see the bias from the beginning. I think in one of the correspondence from the police to the hospital, you will need to assist us with this because they don't understand the medicine.
Yeah.
Well, they should have had independent people going in there.
Yes, they should. They should have done, yeah.
Then we get the likes of Dr. Evans, you know, he's investigating for the police and becomes chief inquisitor. How does that work? You can't unbiasedly investigate and then go to a criminal court and give an unbiased opinion. You've become biased by your findings.
Yeah,
within-
he's totally invested. He's kind of a sort of a police detective, as it were, in his own fantasy world, really, in a way. That's he's the person that they wrote so many articles about him, say this is the he's the man that caught her. He caught her, you know, by looking at the
in minutes.
line. Well, 10
Yeah.
10 minutes he established
No, it's
it.
less. Now the latest one said in minutes. In minutes, I knew.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it's going down. You know, he's got. Oh God.
I watched him on Panorama.
Oh
and
God.
I've never known anybody in the whole of my life, well, I suppose I have, but that wouldn't question themselves. If people brought a completely different hypothesis, I would at least look at it and weigh it up and say, you know, although I can see some points here, I still stand by what I said because of X, Y, and Z. It's just the arrogance of the complete murderer.
Well, exactly, and you know, he's not engaging with it blow for blow with that report. He simply generalizes it into a statement, which is they don't know as much as they think they do. And does that sound scientific?
Well, they don't know as much as me in
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, they don't know as much as me. But and he, oh dear, I mean, he's kind of fighting shy of even saying that, but he wants you to kind of intuit that. Yeah, in other words, that there is somebody that knows more. Guess who it is? It's me. It's me again. But no, it's staggering. It's staggering. It shouldn't be possible. But
So I'm going to leave it there, guys.
oh, thanks so much, Tom. Thanks so much, Tom, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Really. So
Yeah.
let's hope this doesn't go anywhere. This aspect. I mean, I don't know where that will put us if it does. If we hear that the CPS have. Cheerio, Tom. Thanks very much. I don't know where that will leave us. What do you think, Jenny and 19, if they do bring it?
Again, it just shows how stupid they are, and it's just more ammunition that, again, you think that the poor guy that was spent like 17 years or that rape that he didn't commit, and they like was 7 or 4 years ago had the DNA to exonerate him, and well, I'm just not going to do it. I mean, if that just didn't put people over, this has got to put people over, you know. But again, you poor guys, I feel for you in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't have freedom of speech. You know, anyone who is taking on the establishment, we can take on the establishment so much easier here in America than you guys can.
You can't even pray silently in your head, in certain parts of the country, you know, on the streets.
What?
Silently. You know, they've arrested people and taken them away in handcuffs because they're praying silently in their head in a catchment area near an abortion clinic. They're just standing there and they're asked by the police.
They're not doing anything.
What are you
they're
doing?
Not like blocking or anything like
they're
that.
Not blocking,
or they're not in it. They're just standing on the corner.
They're not approaching anyone. They're not saying anything to anyone. They're not holding up a sign in these particular instances, but they're asked, what are you doing? And the lady says, one particular lady, and there's a guy also that does it. What are you doing? So I'm praying I'm praying. And he said, well, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. And they arrest them and take them away.
It's not like move on that they would probably do here in America. It'd be like, you're arrested. Oh my God.
Well, it's the fact that they say they want to carry on just standing there thinking something in their head, but they're not allowed to do that. It leads to an arrest, and that's what.
But that is, I mean, are you sure guys are not part of the Soviet Union or the new Soviet Union? You know, or the Stasi police? Are they the you know, like they did in East Germany? I mean, I'm old enough to know what happened in the old Soviet Union and, you know, East Germany. I mean, this is just start of it.
Well,
I
this guy we got Starmer. He's the most hated prime minister in history. Really, he really is. You know.
So
I think
my understanding though with your election, it was just that the whoever was Reform Party took votes away from the Tories, and that's how we got in. Is that pretty much it,
Yeah,
or?
they got a big majority, but on the basis of a very low turnout. But they still
Okay.
got all this control. So, sorry, what are you going to say? 19 there? Beg your pardon.
sorry, I
Sorry.
think, a solution to this would be if the establishment would work with health professionals so that these miscarriages of justice of health professionals don't happen again.
Yes, yes,
And that's all we can wish for, is because we need to prevent cases like this.
absolutely do. Yeah, yeah. Well, do you know the channel? Everybody in the chat and yourself, Jenny, and 19, called oh God, Spoken Injustice. Anna that runs that channel.
Yes.
And she did a video not so long ago when she went through this is the way it needs to be in terms of regulation of experts, also a formulation for helping the jury come to a decision, not just loading them and overloading them with all this stuff and just leaving it with them. That then they need a lot more guidance in a case like this, which they obviously didn't have, especially when there's a
I
disparity.
completely agree with that, because this case is quite simple, but it's very complex.
Yes.
If you have no form of medical knowledge at all, it is quite. You can see already that there's experts are disputing amongst themselves.
Yes, absolutely, and they didn't see that in the trial, did they? They didn't see it in either trial. They didn't see a disputation process.
You can go to a doctor and go to 5 different doctors and be given 5 different diagnoses.
Yes, well,
some diagnoses are not clear cut.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking about that in a video that I did the other day, and it's this idea that Coffey and Moritz are kind of trying to get over the idea that because there's a range of opinions of exactly what was the cause of death in terms of a process, what actually caused the death of a particular baby, and because there's some differences of opinion, that somehow that makes it unbelievable that it wasn't a natural cause of death or caused by medical error or failures.
There's a saying out there. I'm sorry. Oh, 19 or so.
No, sorry, you carry on. Sorry.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt. There's a saying out there. If you put a case before 10 doctors, you will get 12 different opinions. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, they're all gonna, but they'll all agree, like, okay, this might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Was that, or that straw might have been down there at number 4. But again, it's so rare to find one thing that causes a death. Yeah, if you're hit by a bus, that will cause a death. But someone dying, like of natural causes, it is accumulation of several different things. Like the kids were premature, they were there were multiples. They had pseudomonas on the thing. Yeah, they had incompetent doctors. Well, where would you can't list it as 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to list them kind of like this.
I know what you mean, and that's what you end up with it on a death certificate. It's the idea that all these are potentialities. What I mean, you can say for certain they're involved. You don't know exactly the order and which was the primary one. Like you say, the straw that broke the camel's back. But what Coffey and Moritz is they're sowing the idea, oh, look at this new defense. They can't get all their ducks in the row kind of idea. But all they have to do, surely, this is the point I was making a couple of days ago, the bar that they have to reach, and they've reached it well beyond it, is to say that there's reasonable doubt that it's not a murder, but it's these other one or other of these other causes, isn't it? They don't have to. and more, but they've already done more than that. They've destroyed the fake theory of the murder, and that's all they need to do, actually.
And I want to compliment whoever this Lynn, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Mark. I want to compliment whoever this Lynn Salter is. Oh my gosh, whoever this person is putting out, you were wonderful. Yes, I've heard that thing too, is that something was going on at Liverpool that, and I think that, and Richard Gill alluded to this too,
Yes, he
that
does.
they were under pressure, or they had to, for some reason, they had to lower the number of cots they had. There was a reason why Chester had to take a lot of this stuff on too, you know, that, so they were in cahoots together. What was going on at Liverpool? Was Brewery covering for something that's going on at Liverpool that they couldn't get a hold on, and they had to take some of this stuff off and relieve the pressure on Liverpool. There is a much deeper story in there, and we got to look at the whole Brewery and Yaxel connection here too.
We do, and this goes very, very strongly into, as you say, what Professor Gill's been talking about in combination with the work of God, my memory's going for names now. Sarah Hawkins, the doula that was on the live a few months ago, and it's around this area that there was this program of which Liverpool Women's Hospital was a part. And they had
the fertility thing. She was, or someone had mentioned that there was like a fertility thing.
It was to do with multiple births, and I think, I don't want to misrepresent it now, but there's this idea fundamentally that this is how I've kind of seen it, is that there was a tendency to want to send babies that weren't going to make it, as it were, to COH, in order to
that would make
massage that to LWH. Yeah,
that would make Liverpool's numbers look better, because we don't have the real problem, as many problem children, so we could make our stats so much better. We could make our extubation rate at that 1%.
Absolutely. Well, exactly. But and very particularly because they were involved in a kind of a national scheme of trying to, I can't remember what it's called, but they're involved in a particular program. I'm not sure if it's just around multiple births, but they had an interest in. I'm just adding. They had an interest in moving some of these multiples that should have been born and then looked after at LWH, pushing them on to COCH, and that's the work that. And he mentioned it again today, Professor Gill. He brought that up again in that short video he did.
And who was the one that devised this whole neonatal transportation thing? Wasn't Yaxel involved in that too, so far as the planning of this thing and stuff like that? Obviously, the whole transport. They even mentioned it at the Royal College, whatever that thing was, that the whole transport thing was a mess too, that they couldn't get these kids quick enough to another hospital. Well, who was the one that kind of was involved in this too? Was Yaxel? How much was Yaxel involved in too? How much are they trying to cover for him too? I have questions about that guy.
Yeah, have you got any thoughts on that, 19? This idea about another reason for this apparent spike at COCH being linked with this third level unit, kind of ending up kind of sending, as it were, directing multiple births that are likely not. Sadly, babies are not likely to survive to the level 2 unit.
I read the other day the head of People Services statement to Thurwell, and I think when they were being sent, it was because the neonatal unit at Liverpool Women's had been closed to admissions because of the acuity there. So I don't know. I don't think there was anything nefarious going on.
Right. There's this thing. I don't know if you've come away from your mic a little bit. I don't know if anyone can.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I don't know. There's some background sound. I just want to hear you. I want everyone to hear you and everything. So I'm just saying it's a little bit muddy at the moment, the sound, but it was a lot clearer before. I don't know if anything's changed, but I don't know, 19, whether you saw the live or also seen any of Professor Gill's interactions with Sarah Hawkins, the doula, who's done this research about twin to TTPS, twin to twin
transfusion.
Transfusion syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, 19, that kind of theory.
I've only seen a little bit. I haven't had chance to read the article.
Right. Yes. I mean, I know it's just another strand of potential as to why because there are so many multiples in what end up in the deaths of the indictment babies, for want of a better expression, aren't there? Really.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I mean, is it 2/3? Is it 2/3 of the indictment babies are multiples? Really, you know.
But yes, there were quite a few, because I think even some of the what would appear as singular births were actually twin births.
Yes, that's right. And there are some babies there in which their twin or one of the triplets died. That's right. That's another aspect as well. I'll just see if I can get any other comments coming through. Has something happened to your mic, 19? I can just about hear you. Are you all right? Is everyone all right to hear 19? I don't want anything you're saying to miss. There's a lot of sort of static behind it, but are you in a different room?
I will, in a second, I will go back on my phone.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a change. I just didn't want anybody to miss your contributions, you know.
Now, did she say Liverpool was having some sepsis issues or some outbreaks of Pseudomonas or something? Or what was she saying? Or what was going on at Liverpool that we know of?
There were some issues around infection and to what degree they got it under control, I don't know.
Right, which happens.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Liverpool could lower their cot numbers or their crib numbers or somewhat close down to some degree and take admissions, but Countess of Chester couldn't? Explain that one to me.
We've got the bizarre situation here in which Shu Lee said if COCH was in Canada, it would have been shut down. And
in America too. Yeah.
Yeah, and bizarrely, we've even got Evans when he's told by Sweeney, John Sweeney, in that interview, well, if this was for your unit, he said, well, it should have been shut down as well. While at the same time, Evans is saying all the babies are well and everything was fine with the treatment and everything was fine with the unit. So he's playing both narratives at the same time that can't work together, but he's happy to do that all day long, isn't he, Evans?
That's a narcissist.
It's a narcissist. It is a narcissist.
That's what a narcissist does. And they love getting a reaction out of people like you. That he is probably, if he was watching this now, he is smiling. You know,
he's sitting there having a cup of coffee and a cake and something. Oh, look at they're all talking about me.
Yeah, and he's doing it. How did you sing that? He's doing it Dowie's way. I love that. I rewatched that the other day. That is hilarious.
There is that, but there's also he's worried. Because he knows if it goes the way it is going to go, and I believe
he'll get no more business. His business is gone. That's the only thing he's worried about.
His name is destroyed. He's
retired now. He's
retired, but his name will go down in history as you know.
Well, it'll be like Meadows, won't it?
It'll be Meadows to the power of 10. It will be like he's thinking about his family. He'll be seen as a kind of as the monster he is, really, you know.
Yeah. And he won't be able to buy any more horses or cars for his kids too. Wasn't that's the whole reason he did it? Because his daughter was into horses and his son was into cars or something.
Paying off the universities, and that's the measure of the man, that he's turned the destruction of an innocent person and then said, well, this is all the goodies I bought with the money that I gained
for his kids. Not that he's helping starving children in a third world country with his money, is that he's helping his kids. Yeah.
He's an absolute bastard, and I don't want to hold back on him. I never have, but he's some kind of sociopath in my view, you know.
or psychopath. I don't know what the difference is, but
what the
whatever.
difference is, I don't know. He doesn't care what he's done. He's not.
Doesn't
He's,
matter. Yeah.
but he is angry. Though I thought
Yeah.
that bit in I don't know what you think, 19 and Jenny in the chat. That bit when Moritz is talking to him and he's very upright in the chair. There's anger pulsing through him because he knows he's on the ropes in some way. He knows how he's being criticised by so many people, and publicly he's been shamed publicly. So he's fighting. He's still fighting. He's still fighting.
And I'm wondering what Judith Morris and Coffee's thinking right now, because they're being, come on, people are raking them. If the BBC forced them to redo whatever they did, they're being raked over. They know they're being raked over the coals too, and I'm glad.
Well,
they're
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
I think people should complain to Ofcom.
Yes. I think some people haven't they? Some people have made complaints, and the thing about Coffee, I looked him up and I found that he's he's not like a new boy on the block with Panorama. He's produced 25 episodes. He's been involved in 25 episodes, so he's like an old hand at this, and he's absolutely awful in his ability to critically think. So that he ends up saying a ridiculous thing like those extubations are either Lucy being a bad nurse or an attempted murderer there.
I don't know that if that's a little bit of not wanting to step on his colleague's toes.
Could you speak up a bit, 19?
Sorry, I'm not too sure if that's a bit of him not wanting to step on his colleague's toes.
With Moritz, you mean?
Yeah.
There's a dynamic between them, isn't it, of some sort?
Yeah.
Yes, and but it's all again back to this fictional idea. They're playing these detectives. You're getting these long, moody shots of Moritz. They've just set it up with her in a kind of a gloomy sort of room, looking at a laptop as though something's going on through her head. It's just tumbleweed. It's tumbleweed. Nothing's going on there. What is going on there?
No, I think
what happened to Truth.
It's in the toilet. They don't give a damn about the truth.
You know, I was always taught that if you made a statement, you did a statement of fact.
Can't quite hear you, 19. Sorry, I don't know if anyone else.
I will change back when my.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you could get a bit nearer to the mic, I don't want to miss what you're saying.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
A bit better, yeah, a bit better now. Thank you.
Now, for me, I was always taught that when you had to write a statement, you did a statement of fact.
Yes.
I observed this at this time, on this date, in this place.
Yeah.
Now, what my observations were within this trial, not only were people giving some statement of fact, they were adding their opinion to it too.
Yes.
You know, and that should never be allowed, really, in Thirlwell. And I think there's a lot more deaths that happen. That should have been shut down, because it's not for him to make such conjecture on the stand, because Thirlwell is still the stand. And all the way through it, you know, some of us went to court, people were imparting their opinion. They had no place to do that.
But it all feeds into the story. It's all about storytelling, isn't it? And you one of the big red flags is memories improving over time, and also memories coming together that they've all been coached, so they all get on board. And that's the coaching. That's another red flag, and that was happening all over the shop, really, with the flitting rashes, etc.
And the parents
at the time.
Until the police got involved and started knocking on the doors, there were no complaints about Lucy from the parents, were there?
No, not at all. No.
Come on,
Absolutely
you think
not,
right
no.
then and there they would have, you know, after the baby died or when there was going on, that the parents would have complained, and all of a sudden now they're remembering that Lucy did this or that, and it's like, You remembering this after? So the police were just feeding on these parents.
And they still
Like
are. They
vultures.
still are. They've still got them. Unfortunately, not saying anything against the parents. I'm talking about what the
Oh
police.
no, I feel for the parents. I mean, these
Yeah,
poor parents.
I
My
know.
God.
What the police and their lawyers are doing are trying to. They want to keep them locked and blocked into the original story. They're doing everything they can to do that. And I suspect there's political pressure on trying to get them to continue in that vein. In other words, as soon as that breaks, as soon as, even if there's just one set of parents start saying, look, I'm really concerned that I hear you now and I want to see the reports, because Shuley and team offered, and Mark McDonald said, didn't he, if any of the parents want to see the reports, they can see them.
Even Dr. Dimitrova, I'm sure.
Dimitrova, yeah.
Yes, she even said, please, whatever you can. I want the parent. If the parents want to see this, that's fine. She even's come out. So
Absolutely, but I think it's like the abusiveness of the police and the abusiveness of the legal people that are kind of allegedly protecting the parents. They're not protecting them, and the police aren't protecting them. They're keeping them in a state of, well,
misery.
You have to keep on board, basically, on the winning team, as it were, and that's all they care about.
Or
They don't
if
care
we
about
have a
this.
lawsuit, we won't be part of it. I'm sure there is some, or I know weren't there some NDA signed by the parents, or some discussion where the parents might have done an NDA or something like that. I know.
Possibly. I don't know.
No.
I think the parents were given lifetime anonymity from the court.
Yeah.
So there's a court order that the parents cannot be identified.
Yeah.
But I thought, didn't they get some sort of like and I could be wrong, absolutely wrong, some sort of like maybe a little bit of a payment or something like that, or something, and maybe they had to sign something. Again,
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I know there
was
was something in Thirlwall where these parents were talking. This was before she was, I think, indicted or whatever. There was something in Thirlwall where these statements came through from lawyers or something like that. So I'm wondering if there was some sort of something,
There's
I just
the
question.
psychological pressure being applied to them both by
Yeah.
the police and their legal team, in terms of, you just got to stay on message here, basically. But it's being presented to them as though, we hear all this noise coming, but don't take any notice of
Ignore.
it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because we're
This
still
is a killer.
investigating. We're still investigating.
How could you be on the side of the woman that killed your kid? Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And they're kind of almost like this bit of a Stockholm syndrome going on in the sense that they're the ones that have kind of helped them, as it were. So they're not going to be seen as the enemy. It would be a big switch for the parents to suddenly see, oh my God, the police and the legal system as a whole have sent us all the way down the wrong path here. And we've got to completely revise our idea of what's happening.
Sorry.
I mean, that's it. They're brainwashed. That's a form of brainwashing.
I think it is.
And when you do this under a trauma situation and you're doing that, that's almost like a Stockholm syndrome or something.
It is a
like
trauma
that.
bonding
Oh my God.
going on there as well.
Oh my God, these poor parents.
Yeah, they are. But it's, when there's one parent, and that obviously they're not named because the anonymity, as 19 was saying, says something, why are people raking all this up? We know that she's guilty, etc. What the media, or big swathes of the media, have done thus far is to kind of project that that's all parents are thinking that and saying the same thing, but they're not explicitly. We don't know what they're thinking. We have no idea what the parents are thinking about this as a totality, do we?
Oh, I wish. Yeah, it's a shame. And again, there's got to be some pressure on these parents. That's why I'm shocked. Like in America, had this been America, there would be parents. Not all of them would be on that side. Again, there's something going on here. Again, unless your societies are that much different than ours, but there, again, in America, there would have been one or two parents who saying, this is no, would have broken by now.
Especially since Shuley, especially since
Yes,
then.
they would have broken since Shuley. So something, again, something. There would have been easily.
So there's some, I don't know, it's a kind of, what do you think about that 19? Are you there still?
I try not to talk about the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
The
You're right.
babies,
You're right.
because it's terrible because the babies have almost become public property.
Yes,
And people forget
yeah,
that they were living, breathing babies
Humans,
who were
yeah.
loved.
You're right. You're right.
So I try my best not to talk about them. I will talk about the case in general.
I totally get that. The other side, as it were, are constantly bringing them up, aren't they, as a kind of way, as a cosh in order to stop people talking about the case itself, aren't they? Say, why are you doing this? Why are you causing this further harm? That's a kind of manipulation, isn't it, that we've had all the way through from the guilters' side. I just want to bring up something that Lynn says here, and I was going to mention it at the time when 19, you mentioned this about Breary and the insulin results. Lynn says, I thought the consultant who was on maternity leave drew Breary's attention to the insulin result. And that is, in fact, what I believe was the case as well, that it's Dr. ZA, but we know the actual name of her, of course.
You're quite correct in what you're saying, because that was brought out in Thirlwall, and it was in the emails between the consultants. But in his Panorama interview and in the article from the BBC and in Thirlwall, his words were, I was looking through case notes for the police.
Yes.
when I came across them.
Absolutely. And these twin tracks of these two incompatible stories, mutually incompatible, have been running for 2 years now. And it's as though both Breary and Dr. ZA and everyone who's heard them officially, it's as though they don't have to deal with that contradiction, but you need to deal with it, because effectively, essentially Breary's lying about it, because he kept hold of that information for a year that he had from Dr. ZA, didn't he?
I think what would need to happen is to have a look at the date of the email, and then the date of when the police investigation began. But I think he said it was 2018 spring. He was looking at these cases for the police.
That's absolutely right. And you've got Dr. ZA saying that she rang him up. It popped into her head. Obviously, she's heard through the grapevine.
She was on maternity
leave, and she rings him or contacts him by some means in March 2017. So I remember this 13-month period of time. And then he, quote unquote, finds it 13 months later. And then you get the second track of a narrative of him being the one that finds the quote unquote smoking gun that he's actually been led to 13 months before. So they both
said he found it.
Yes, thank you. That's the third story.
Oh, that way he could be a Jeram too.
They all want to get in on the act. You've got
they all want to be a Jeram who was, touted as the, oh my God, the biggest of the biggest hero was Jeram,
And we have this duplication as well, don't we? With where it's Evans claiming that he's the first person that saw the Shuley paper, whereas it's Jairam actually seeing it, taking it home and sitting there with a bottle of wine on his lap and his laptop and thinking, oh my God, look at this. It's what I saw 2 years before. But then later, Evans says, as far as I know, it was me that discovered that link. He said that in an interview. So we've got another two incompatible stories. It's all shit. It's all shit. Everything about it. If we had access to their WhatsApp messages, we'd have a field day. The amount of conspiring between these characters, right from 2015 onwards, it's a hot mess all the way through. You know, I don't know what to say.
No, they're creeps. They're absolute creeps.
They are a bunch of creeps. There's no
They're a
doubt.
bunch of creeps. They're a bunch of misogynistic creeps. You know, and they found themselves. You know, we thought we had found the perfect spoil, and you cannot tell me there wasn't misogyny involved in this too.
Yeah,
I cannot believe.
believe it. Yeah, even though some of the number you got Dr.
Some of
B
the
there, you've got
were,
but the majority
female.
were men. The majority were men.
But I bet those women that were anonymous, I bet to some degree they were browbeaten. Men have a way to kind of scare women. I'm wondering to some degree if they were browbeaten to kind of come along too. They weren't part of the original.
It could be part of could it be just a supposition, a combination of the browbeating thing or the idea of status, but also with Dr. B, she owes Breary something back from 2014 in some way.
Oh, yeah.
She owes him.
Absolutely.
In the way that was handled in terms of baby Noah. Something, and that's something somebody said on a video recently.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It might have been Stuart Gillham's video. Yes, it was, when she was talking about, well, no, it might have been someone else's. But it's the idea that when it came to baby O, Breary
she was at that resuscitation. She
Yeah.
knows exactly what happened.
In baby O, Breary got some support of whatever kind from Dr. B, and there was a reversal of that back in 2014 with baby Noah. So they kind of they had each other's backs, like in oppositional ways, you know, across those two incidents.
I could be wrong in this. Wasn't she the one that wrote up the resuscitation notes in the medical records?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Isn't it?
Wasn't it her too? So I'm sure she did not make the resuscitation notes look like, and I can guarantee you there was a registrar and 3 consultants around that incubator during that resuscitation. I can guarantee you that no one could see what was going on, all that was going on and stuff like that too. So, and a lot of the nurses, they're kind of running to get stuff and do this and that. Lucy may not have even seen what had happened or know what had happened.
No, and she just has to be in the hospital somewhere.
She had no idea when they pulled back that syringe and saw blood. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They had all 4 think I can guarantee you, they were wetting their pants.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They knew they hit something. Something was bad. You pull back on a syringe and you have blood, you're in the abdomen and it's not air or fluid. That's bad. Really bad. They absolutely knew.
Can we think back about the bit in the Panorama video in relation to this, what Nima Modi, they tried to put her on the spot by saying, well, you know, how do you explain this shearing injury that caused the liver subcapsular damage? Because, but Nina Modi comes back and says, yes, it was quite possible that it could have happened, even though it was cesarean. So they were trying to kind of destabilize or undermine people like Nina Modi there, weren't they?
Oh yeah, it's easy to know how. Okay, in cesarean, you're first of all, the cut is only so big. Now it isn't just like when they do a cesarean, it isn't just like this baby pops out. They got to do some pulling, and unless they open this mom up huge and they only want to make it so big. Now we're talking about more than one baby here. So, and one baby, you know, they do kind of little twists and turns and stuff like that. So any kind of twist or turn that would pull on a ligament, that would pull on the liver, that would cause a bleed.
And that can cause the shearing injury that's bleeding.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what Nina. But you see, you had Moritz and Coffey trying to second guess her and say, "Well, how can that be possible as well as something else?" Well, it could have been a combination of the.
Well, and another thing, Shu Lee said that these babies were delivered rapidly. It was just within minutes apart.
Yeah.
The father was saying that there was in the theater it was so much blood and stuff. It spurted into the walls.
Right.
So this was an emergency cesarean.
Yeah, but you've got these amateur detectives, Coffey and Moritz, just trying to kind of you can tell their angle is just to try to kind of throw mud at the panel's findings. That's what they're.
cesarean sections, or it's easy, this and that. Not necessarily,
No.
not necessarily. Plus, you don't know what you go when you go into there too. I mean, wow,
And one of the worst bits. Sorry. Do you want to say something, 19, about that part of it?
No.
You know the and this is one of the other terrible things about the Panorama is this alleged expert who's anonymous that they're using as a source of information to counteract the panel's findings. How legitimate is that? That's just absurd, isn't it?
I think so. And I think what I find quite unbelievable is that all but one of the babies had post-mortems.
Yeah.
We have a coronial system in this country. The coroner wasn't informed of any suspicions of deaths. Why wasn't the coroner brought to the trial, and why wasn't the original pathologist?
Absolutely. Conspicuous by their absence, really, yeah. Were they...
I think those original post-mortems were quite correct, and how they morphed into air embolism and air into the tummy was just unbelievable.
It's and he can do it all through a bunch of shabby notes. Evans can a couple of years down the line, didn't actually physically examine the babies, but he's overturned them. There's a terrible irony in the latest Panorama in which Evans, there's that baby that Shuley panels say there's a blood clot that goes to the brain. I can't remember which baby that is, but Evans says, "Oh, that would have been picked up at." This is the irony. Evans says that would have been picked up, and it wouldn't have been necessarily. But as some people have said, it's very hard to spot on post-mortem.
Yeah.
But the irony there is that Evans is saying, he's given credence to one of the post-mortems, and he's overturned 6 of them. So he wants his cake and eat it that way, doesn't he? He's saying, "Oh, the post-mortems would have found all that out," while at the same time of overturning 6 of them and saying, I know better than 6 of them.
I think the most telling was that the child where he changed his mind.
Yeah.
On the stand.
Well, on the stand, and then afterwards to Channel 5,
yes,
when it was disputed that Lucy was on duty.
Yes.
And you can't then come back with, it doesn't matter. She still killed them.
Yes, you can't. You shouldn't be able to. People are shocked. People were shocked by the boldness of him saying that, aren't they? They're shocked by that.
I can understand it doesn't matter they're dead, but it's what was the cause of the death. And people forget in sudden infant death syndrome, on quite a lot of those babies, they never find the cause of death.
Unless you're Roy Meadows.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Because you go for Munchausen's for everything that you can't explain. But that's right. I can't remember the old surveys or I can't think of words right now. But there was a lot of documentation around the percentage of deaths of neonates and very young babies in which there was no definitive cause of death. It's quite a high level, isn't it? This goes back to some time ago. People were putting out those studies, that's the word. They were looking at studies and a very high percentage in which there is no absolute definite cause of death on a lot of them. I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's and that feeds back into what Moritz and Coffey were trying to do to Tanima Modi and the idea of the Shuley in the panel, that because there's a kind of differential diagnosis of the cause of death there, that means it's totally weak, that there's nuance there about what it exactly was. But their main job actually was to prove that it wasn't intended harm, and they've done that, haven't they? They've pushed that out. I think they have.
Yes, I agree with you. Shuli's panel said there was no evidence of malfeasance.
And let's not forget, there was someone from the top children's hospital in Japan, the top children's hospital in the United States, which is Boston Children's Hospital, Nina Moni, who's the top neonatologist, the founding father of neonatology, essentially modern neonatology in Canada, and then the Karolinski Institute. It's like Harvard kind of a thing, a Harvard Medical School. I mean, in Sweden, that is like the place. So all these different countries, I guess all these countries are wrong. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, these guys
wrong.
weren't chicken. These guys weren't all these different countries. It wasn't just one country. I mean, these were, like he said, these were the cream of the crop. Absolutely.
Evans knows he's so outgunned that his only direction of travel is into more and more absurdity, making more and more absurd statements, because he can't even give an atom of credence to that panel now, and that's an absurd position to be in, because he knows that they walk all over him in terms of experience and knowledge, but he can't even give them any respect, can he? If he gives them the tiniest amount of respect, he knows he's finished. But that pushes him into becoming a more obviously absurd character to more and more people.
He's a cornered rat.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And
I think that the most telling thing in this case is Judge Holdroy in the appeal when he said about the evidence given by Dr. J. Ram.
Yeah.
Wasn't consistent with the contemporaneous notes.
Absolutely,
and was not said to anybody for over a year.
Yes, I thought that was a very compelling statement. It was almost like lining up for the future. It's like, well, okay, you got this past it, but we know that there's something wrong here. But well, I wish they had the power to sort of unroll it then, if they could do that. But I don't know.
Just say that somebody in the chat has just put, ICUs are usually large rooms where all beds, cots are visible. There might be a couple of side rooms, but they would have glass windows. The layout of the Countess of Chester, they've had videos. They were very small, cramped rooms. They weren't large rooms at all. That's why they were campaigning for a new neonatal unit. And even I think Stephen Brearley had said, or Gibbs, I can't remember which one, that the cots were really crammed quite close together.
Yes.
Which puts the infants at risk of infection.
That's absolutely right, and equipment in the corridors, etc. Yeah, it was very cramped, wasn't it? And
they were even doing IV med stuff in the corridors, weren't they? Wasn't there like the IVs or were set up, or they were setting the IVs up in the corridors?
Yeah, there were.
That's huge. That's massive infections, because you think about it. People are walking. People are bringing in stuff on their shoes, dirt on their shoes, and these nurses are being forced to set up IV infusions in the corridors. That's horrible. Infectious control thing.
It was a bit of a rabbit hole I went down regards to Dr. B, the fact that she kept on going out to smoke apparently and coming in, and it was said of her, I know it's his hearsay, it was said of her that she was seemingly reluctant to wash her hands coming in, and she's been smoking outside. Anyway, just to say about Topsy-Turvy's comment there, I'm wondering whether
Lucy Letby said that on
right.
the stand,
Yes, she did.
Her evidence.
She did, and she also said that Dr. B didn't like her. That was a long-standing feeling of Lucy that Dr. B didn't like her. But when Topsy-Turvy's comment here regarding ICUs, I'm wondering whether that's targeted more to this level 3 unit and feeding into the idea that how has Lucy got away with extubating babies without being seen at LWH? Maybe that was the angle there. I'm not sure. Because LWH is an ICU, isn't it? Is that right? So it's we haven't seen a film. 19. Do you know LWH specific? Have you been to there at all ever?
No.
It'd be interesting to see the layout there. I know the film that you mentioned of the before there was a build on there's that film, and Chris on Lucy Letby Analysis has gone over that film. That's been out for a long time. That film's since 2021. So yeah. Let's see if there's any other comments. Sorry if I've missed any comments of everyone, but they'll all come up in the replay as well for people to look at. A medical expert can only give evidence on medical matters. They can say air in the stomach is present, but cannot say if it was present deliberately by accident or naturally.
I think the medical experts within a clinical trial, not a clinical trial, within a court case are allowed to give an opinion, and it was their opinion that it was air emboli.
Yes, and you'd have people like, I think it was Hindmarsh, for example, saying things this is consistent with but not diagnostic of. So they'd go a certain amount of the way to say, I'm not giving a conclusive answer, but the jury are probably hearing that as supportive.
See, the jury doesn't know what is consistent with, or it is definitely that. I mean,
yeah, they hear it as supportive, don't they? Supportive.
Yeah, they just hear, okay, so it must be insulin. They don't hear that. They don't know that nuance.
No, they don't. It's the same as Anna Milan saying about the necessity of doing mass spectrometry was advisory. In other words, she's weakening the whole idea of it and saying, well, you don't need to do it. It's just a bit of advice that you can ignore, even though it's in big red letters. Say you've got to do it if you suspect factitious insulin.
Yeah.
So they got away with a lot of sneaky little tricks like that of making supportive comments, those other so-called experts around. And
there was no confirmatory bloods at all.
No, there wasn't. And at the time, well, let's go back to Dr. ZA, because she's the one that phoned it in when she's on maternity leave, and they obviously thought it wasn't anything worth following up, that there was a poisoner on the ward at that time. She just filed it and said, well, the babies have gone home, no need to think about this. That's the level that she took it at the time, isn't it? That she could have investigated it at the time, but why did she not? Baby F I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's because the baby had recovered. They didn't feel they needed to.
They didn't need to. Would they have had the blood sample that produced the original? Because the baby's recovered and there's no longer any glycemic issues, they couldn't go into
eventually have been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been destroyed.
Oh yeah.
But the only keeper for X number of days, and then it will be destroyed unless it's been asked to be kept.
Do you think there was a window of time for Dr. ZA, now who it is, in relation to baby F, to get that immunoassay result back, look at the 4,000 figure of insulin and say, we need to preserve whatever's left of that blood sample and get it onto mass spectrometry? There was a window in which she...
Yeah, because that's not the protocol.
It's not the protocol.
No, the protocol is to repeat the blood.
Yeah.
And
that's what we would have done in America too.
Yes.
On the repeated blood, then if that yields the same result, then you'd send it on to Guildford, I think.
Okay, so to basically do another immunoassay with the original blood that was sent to them. Yeah,
and I can guarantee you, in America, the doctor would have said, I think this is in his medical notes. would have said, I think this might be lab error. Let's repeat this.
Yeah.
In the medical notes, it's like, this is just okay. It would have said something to the effect of, no, this, I really suspect this is lab error, but let's repeat this just to make sure. You
So
know,
it was a real.
Not only that,
yeah.
there was no venous glucose that confirmed hypoglycemia. They were doing it from a heel prick.
Yes, that's right. But there was this 99. I think in relation to baby F, there was this 999 error code. Some people thought it was a high code, but other people said since it's an error.
Oh, that's lab error. That's like that is so obviously lab error that I am shocked that these doctors didn't pick it up. I mean, that's just how
But it's
dumb
not
they are.
necessarily lab error, because these babies had been filled with glucose.
Yeah.
So, say for instance, it wasn't lab error. I'm not saying that it isn't. I think I can't remember the company who the machines are from that measures that.
I think it's Roche, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, I had Roche in my head. They have confirmed that at a specific measuring point, the machine can no longer record the glucose and will give a automatic result.
999.
Yeah, 0.9.
Yeah, 999. It's not unheard of.
That blood
on other machines that do the same thing. That's
yes,
again. Yes, the 999 is
If the cutoff is 600 and that blood result was 601, you would get the 999.9. So it may not necessarily be a lab error.
Right. But the doctors would know that this ain't right. Easily.
Well, would they? You know, the glucose that was poured into the babies, pushes insulin out of the cells. So you end up with a high insulin because of the glucose, and the C-peptide could be the hook effect, that it can't be measured because of the height of the glucose. So for me, there's so many variables in this insulin testing. You have the Jeff Chase theory.
Yes, is this the one? Sorry, where there's a lady and a guy, and I can't remember in Anouk's documentary where it's about the antibodies. So they're not, the insulin's not having the normal lowering of glucose effect, but it's building up in the blood, and that's what the immunoassay measures. Or it measures the antibodies. It measures the antibodies to them.
I'm not really qualified to speak about the insulin and the glucose, but I just feel there may be an alternative theory.
And after all, this is the kind of thing that I keep coming back to in everything, really. I mean, that should have been established as a reasonable doubt, shouldn't it? And conveyed to the jury that's the reasonable doubt here.
I think the bottom line is here that the tests they had didn't follow the protocol for, exogenous insulin.
No, it didn't, did it? No.
And that should be full stop.
It should be I think it should be full stop. In other words, as the guy I keep forgetting names, but in Anouk's thing said, there was an American guy, I think, and he was saying, well, about sports testing, for example, and people losing their jobs, you have to have a higher level of clinical proof, as it were, than they used in this trial that sends somebody to prison for life, In other words, they did the mass spectrometry tests.
Yes, and there was another professor who said, somebody couldn't lose their job on these testings.
Precisely, yeah, precisely. That's what's got it over the line of beyond reasonable doubt, which is absurd.
And I think, the in all nurses who have been convicted on insulin cases, there are no gold standard for the court to say the testing of the insulin needs to reach this gold standard, or that, you know, to prove criminality. There is none.
No, that's right. And I know when Tom was here earlier, we was talking about Ben Geen. Now I sometimes get mixed up with the case of Ben Geen and Colin Norris, but in whichever case it was, in which it was elderly patients, and this is the defence.
Colin Norris.
Colin Norris, yeah.
That's Colin
Yeah.
Norris. So in those cases, we got at the other end of the scale in terms of human life, we've got elderly patients that with certain conditions are producing higher levels of insulin as well, haven't we? So we've got different physiology there, in the same way that we've got different physiology in neonates.
I think it's quite recent. When you say recent in medicine, it can be 10 years, it can be 20 years. But they're now finding that elderly patients can have spontaneous hypoglycemia.
Mm-hmm.
And they generally have drugs, polypharmacy, meaning they're taking many medications, and they also have many medical conditions that can contribute to this. So they were arguing in Colin's retrial that I think it was 5 patients, it was spontaneous hypoglycemia rather than malfeasance. And I did watch his appeal, and again you had all the prosecution who was saying it wasn't caused by that because of XYZ. And then you had the defense saying, yes, it was. I think what is needed in expert witnesses is true scientists that are taking these things back to first principle, not assumption, not hypotheses, from first principle. Because that's where you're getting all the muddying in the waters. Well, I think it's this. Well, no, I think it's that. Let's go from the science and look at it. That's just my opinion.
I totally agree, but they're pushing it through this justice system, which is about two sides fighting each other, that really, you know, the prosecution don't really care what the truth is as long as they win the case, don't they? They don't care. They evidently don't care what the truth is, as long as they can jury believe what their story is.
Same thing in America. Whoever puts on the prettiest, whoever speaks the best, whoever can tell the story the best wins the case. Wins the case.
It's storytelling, isn't it?
Yes, it is storytelling, and Moritz and Coffey are doing the same kind of storytelling as well. There's all kinds of they're trying to direct their audience in all kinds of ways. They did make some concessions because they've had to make some concessions between Panorama 2 and Panorama 3.
To be honest, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I think they were forced into having to, you know, because of where we are now. They can't. It would be too in your face that they're just, you know, but they were trying to land as many blows on it as they could, in ways that just weren't justified, such as when they were trying to say to Nima Modi, well, how is that possible, as though they know better, you know.
Well, and they put that woman's Liverpool thing at the very end. That's the last thing we're going to remember. That told me everything right there, that they think she's guilty and they're trying to save their book deal. You know, that was at the end. It should have been at the beginning.
Very much as an editorial decision to say, that's where we're going to leave you, audience listening. Oh, by the way, we're going to pull this, and it's almost like a reveal, you know. Forget what you've heard so far. there's all this now.
Mhm.
Oh my God, she's guilty now. So yeah, it's very cynical behaviour by the BBC, which is never a surprise, but because they're manipulators, they don't care. Anyway, I might bring it to a close now. I'm sorry I didn't get through all the comments, but they'll all be feeling a bit tired. But thanks ever so much, 19 and Jenny and Tom before, and Tracy as well, and everybody in the chat and everybody who will listen.
And I could speak for every nurse in the world, or I know of. Thank you, Mark, for all your hard effort in helping us nurses. So we owe you.
Well, no, well, thank you. That's very kind. The reason why I want to do these lives is to get such as yourself and 19 and Tom.
No, but everything you're doing, you are the most pro-nurse person out there. So thank you for helping us. We need guys like you. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, this is from day one. This has been this kind of, it's been filled with a sense of horror about what they've done. And could I ask both of you to have any final comments about where we are now, and anything else you want to bring up that you haven't?
Again, I'm looking at history. I'm thinking it's the dying side. When the other side is losing, they're going to throw everything they can at it. They're going to throw everything they can and everything they can. We just got to keep on going. We are winning. But it's long and thing. So it's just, again, it's a cornered rat. They will not give up. They're going to give up. They're going to make it as painful as you can. Okay. So we're going to, I am optimistic it's going. It's taking too long, but the momentum is ours.
I absolutely agree, and I take heart from that. I think that's right. And how do you feel, 19? Any other things you'd like to say to round it off?
I just feel that the truth needs to be told.
Yeah.
We just need to find the truth of what has happened here. And then, the parents know exactly what happened. A poor woman sitting in prison, should be given a true and fair day in court.
Yes. I mean, in light of that, 19, do you actually believe that if it is referred, and I hope when it's referred by the CCRC, do you think that it's more likely that the Court of Appeal will say, well, we're not going to mount another prosecution because of what we see here. We can't do it. It's not going to be worth it. It's not in the public interest to do it because we can't fight this now.
It's difficult to say. I think if it was me and I was Lucy, I feel the only way for my name to be completely cleared would be to have a new day in court.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but I feel what should be campaigned for is for it to be quashed because no crime was committed. By asking for a new day in court, you're then almost admitting that there was a crime.
Yes, it's as though you can possibly even be found guilty of crimes that didn't exist, that never existed. Yeah, it's a kind of
concession. Ben Myers did the Galbraith plea. No case to answer.
That's what he attempted to do, isn't it? Yeah, no case to answer. Yeah,
because there was no case to answer.
And he was right. I mean, that is right. That's always been the case, isn't it? There should never have been a case to. It should never have got to a charge, let alone.
But I believe the only way that the public will believe that Lucy is innocent if people are brought to account.
I agree. It has to be made explicit. Yes. There has to be a sequelae. There has to be accountability, doesn't there?
Yes. Yeah. Like as in Jerem and Brewery and all. Yes.
The public generally have to feel as though, well, the news story is the same as Lucia de Burke. The news story is, well, who and what caused this, and what was the chain of events that caused this miscarriage of justice. And that's the story. And that's where there has been this turning in the media, in the legacy media, so-called, in which more and more people are getting on board with that new story now, because they can see it. It's in the wind, isn't it?
I think you talk about in the public interest. Now, if you look at the cost, because that's how they look at the public interest, don't they? The
They
cost
do,
of
yeah.
the cost of the action towards the public interest. Now, the first trial must have cost in excess of 10 million.
Oh yes, easily, yeah.
So then the prosecution decide to double down and bring a retrial. Now, you have to ask the question, is the retrial in the public interest when somebody has 14 whole life sentences already? They're never coming out of prison. They're going to die in prison. Is it in the public interest to pay X number of more million to bring an extra case that isn't going to change the outcome? Obviously, the parents would feel it's in their interest, but the justice system doesn't look in those terms. And now to be what they call the executives of the Countess of Chester being arrested, and then the possibility of new charges for Liverpool women's. I can understand the executives to a certain extent, but to bring new charges to Liverpool women's and another lot of £1 million when we've got Thirlwell with millions of pounds,
Oh God, yeah.
is that truly in the public interest?
No, it's absolutely not. And but it's just it's a strategizing, because they know the story's turned. I think that's the only reason. That's the only reason they've embarked upon it. I think they would have let that go if nobody had said boo about this, and everybody would have swallowed. Oh, that's the worst serial killer in Britain, female serial
Then
killer.
the question
They
needs to
they
be
never would have
asked.
brought it.
Then the question needs to be asked: should the police and the Crown prosecution be allowed to weaponize the system to silence people?
No, they should absolutely not be allowed to do that, but they're in major self-protection mode. And like Jenny was saying earlier, that they feel they're a beast in a corner, you know, being attacked as they see it, and they're fighting back. This is them fighting back.
Even Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, who were the most disgusting examples of humanity, were not charged with Pauline Reed and I think Keith Bennett.
That's right. Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah,
because they were admitted post conviction, because it was felt it wasn't in the public interest to charge them because of the expenditure of trials, blah, 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 when these people were never getting out of prison. And
that's
if
right.
by some miracle they did get out of prison, they would have charged them at the prison gates as they walked out.
Yes, and this is why this sending of this file to the CPS now is so incongruous, and to do it with such obviously even weaker evidence. Well, there's no evidence really at all. There's just some stats from LWH coupled together. The idea that they're doing it is revealing that they're lashing out, and whether they ever dream they'll get it there anyway. But it's going to be self-defeating in a way, because they look like mugs to me. That's what I think of them as. The police I'm talking about. Desperate move of a dying cornered rat, you know, beast.
Well, let's hope the CCRC review this case quickly.
I hope
And
so. Yeah, I hope they should. I mean, what are they doing? That's what I keep asking in videos. What are they literally doing? They're not going to clinically second guess the panel. So why are they taking all the time? You know.
but I think they have to. I think to give benefit to the CCRC, they have to go through each document meticulously, and then they get their own experts to look at it. So
Are they going to be
just,
Are they going to be medical experts though, or they're not?
I'm not too sure, but they will get their own experts. They will either be medical or scientific experts.
I didn't know to what degree they had recourse to those, but even if they do, then we've got.
It's just like when I watched Colin Norris's appeal. They had an expert for the CCRC who gave evidence.
I just had a horrible thought. Evans rings them up and said, "That sounds like my kind of job," you know. So that's a terrible thought, but I wouldn't put it past him to get another payday, But obviously, he's a busted flush, as they say, and he's thanks ever so much, 19 and Jenny and Tom
Thank
and
you,
Tracy
Mark.
and everybody in the chat and everybody who's listened, whether you've commented or not. Thank you ever so much for all this and all the comments. They sometimes take about up to 24 hours to transfer across, so they'll be up eventually as well, all the comments that people can read. And sorry if I didn't get to any. And just want to say thank you again and good night. Good night to everybody.
Okay, good night.
night.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Ending the stream now. Cheerio.